They never get canceled. There's no backlashing about this. I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly, and you will
well, go
not
on then,
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
N-
not have
Go on,
free speech.
go on. Say the N word. Go on.
I'm not
No,
ashamed.
go on, hang
Don't
on.
invite. No.
No.
I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word, because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here, you and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and to ask her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Piers. I understand what you're trying to do, but we already know she's racist, and I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Myron holds up something. I don't know if it's a Nazi flag or what.
Yeah, it's weird because it got blurred out.
They blurred it out. It's got to be something bad. It's got to be something terrible, right?
Did he use the N-word? Because he said, I'm the only, and then there was like a...
He does, yeah. He uses the irony of ironies. He uses the N-word, calls the other guy an Uncle Tom. Yeah. Look at this woman on the end. Look at her face. Just shock and awe. She's like, ah.
Ricky Schlott, she was like this panel is like the definition of a shit show, because
totally.
Except for Ricky, who I actually liked a lot of what she was saying, that we're probably gonna listen to any of it today because of that. Like everyone, like even Piers, have like a lot of bad opinions on this topic in my estimation here.
Yeah, opinions are all over the place on this.
This is like a total crapshoot. So
yes. So go ahead.
Well, just like Mark Lamont Hill, like spazzing out, like this woman here who I believe is a white nationalist, who's saying that she,
I don't think this woman's a white nationalist. Is she really a white nationalist?
I mean, on her X account, there's a lot of like, we need to live with only white people and brown people.
Oh, okay, well maybe she is a white nationalist. I haven't seen any of that stuff. I just thought she was a free speech warrior who liked to use the N-word.
No.
She went viral because she uses the N-word kind of excessively, right?
This is kind of the issue, that part of this whole thing surrounding this is that there's a lot of people who are just racist who want to use free speech like advocacy as the shroud for their racism, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, there's a lot of racism from the black community as well, and they feel like they're getting racism. They want to use racism back. Like I think we should bring, and this goes into what we were saying yesterday, right? You're emboldening racists when you say, "Oh, the black community gets a pass for racism," right? You're basically making an excuse for white racists, even though you don't conceptualize it that way, but you are. So
yeah, 100%. That is the argument that is like that they levy here. And they levy in a kind of a dishonest way. And we're gonna go back and we're gonna watch a lot of this conversation. But before we do, I want to click this Ben Shapiro clip really quickly that I think perfectly frames this conversation.
All right, cool. Yeah, I was thinking a lot of the response to the N-word.
Folks, a lot of news happening.
A lot of the response to the N-word debate also seems to be related to what your perception is of how much racism there is in America, like the quantity of racism in America. Like if you think we're living in the 1950s, right, and racism is around every corner, then you're going to have a much different reaction to people casually using the N-word, as if you think we're living in a place where racism has kind of been dealt with, right? You're not going to lose your mind as much when you hear the N-word. It's just going to bounce off you because you're like, whatever.
Anyway. That's the interesting sort of, I don't know what you'd say here, the hypocrisy, the dual-sided nature of the Shiloh Hendricks conversation is because, like on one hand, a lot of people say it, and I mean, I do think it's true that there, obviously we don't live in this like massively racist, Jim Crow era country anymore. Like that's obviously not the case. And obviously we had many years of, wokeness and anti-white racism has exploded and become perfectly acceptable and all that stuff. But then on the same token, all the people that are propping up Shiloh Hendricks situation.
Yeah, they might be a little racist.
Well, not only like most of them racist, but their whole advocation of the reason they're propping up is they're trying to say, we want this to be like
the norm.
We want this to be the beginning of saying like, we're tired of, they're kind of doing the dual thing of saying we're tired of cancel culture, but they're also really saying we're tired of black people, essentially.
Right.
And so they're kind of trying to, on one hand, say, oh, it's not that big of a deal because racism isn't that big of a deal in the country, but also say, well, we want to popularize it and make it more acceptable.
Yeah, that's tragic because I am sick as fuck about cancel culture. I just the whole idea that the people are going after this woman bugs the shit out of me, but at the same time, it bugs the shit out of me that it's emboldening racism as well. So,
right. Well, here, let's play this clip. I think this perfectly encapsulates this conversation.
To a bizarre and terrible cycle in the United States in which one side does something bad and the other side then does something similarly bad and then points to the fact that the first side did something bad as an excuse for doing it. This is a problem. We used to call this whataboutism. Now, people have misapplied the term whataboutism over and over and over in the political context. It is not whataboutism to point out double standards. Whataboutism is when you do something wrong, and instead of you saying, yes, I did the thing wrong, but a double standard is being applied, it's when you say, I didn't do anything wrong at all, and it doesn't matter if I did do something wrong because the other side did it. So, for example, if Hunter Biden is super duper duper corrupt, and then somebody on the right side of the aisle does something super duper duper corrupt, and then they're called on it, and they say, well, yeah, but Hunter Biden did something super corrupt. That's whataboutism, because it's a non sequitur. You can say there's a double standard being applied by the media that was willing to ignore and cover up Hunter Biden's activity for years, but now they're going after, say, Team Trump. You can say that the media have been disproportionate in their coverage of corruption. That is a fair point. It is not a fair point to say that corruption on one side of the aisle is justified by corruption on the other side of the aisle. If you do that sort of stuff, then you end up in a bottomless spiral. That bottomless spiral gets worse and worse because everybody just reacts against the last bad thing that the other side did and justifies what they are doing now. And then the other side comes back and says, yeah, well, you just did something even worse, and so I'm going to do something even worse than that. The reality is that calling out double standards is a good thing if you wish to uphold a standard. Calling out double standards as an excuse for doing bad things is not, in fact, calling out a double standard. It is just justifying doing bad things. The reason I'm bringing this.
Okay.
How dare you agree with Ben Shapiro?
I know.
You
I know.
evil right winger.
I know. Listen, you got to agree with people, when they make good points, regardless of where they are, right?
Yeah, this is an excellent point. I'm glad you brought it up.
That's what free will is all about. And yeah, no, this is the exact perfect way to conceptualize it. Is your goal to make society better by reasserting the value that has been lost? Or is your goal to just whataboutism spiral into making, decay, just making everything worse and worse and worse and worse? Yeah. And when we go back to this Piers conversation, you'll see so much of the conversation feels like the whataboutism spiral. It's all just the excuse. We're giving you an excuse to, basically be horrible. And we're going to use this sort of like free speech mask to sort of cover it up, essentially.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how we deal with that when you've got the story of the kid that got stabbed by a white kid gets stabbed by a black kid in school and dies, and everyone is like, a bunch of people in the black community are super racist about it. They have the attitude that the white guy had it coming.
Right.
So how do you dissuade them from having that?
But that's exactly what Ben Shapiro's talking about.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Either the spiral saying, oh, well, because there is a lot of people that are horrible bigots on the GiveSendGo for that situation, well, then it justifies other people in a different situation being horrible bigots themselves. And okay. I mean, I guess we're just spiraling down into just identity politics nonsense at this point.
I want to be clear. I'm not using it as a justification. I'm saying what we need to do is curb the racism in the black community that leads to something like this. But how do you do that?
I think
that's a problem. That's a challenge.
Right. You have to make it. It's very simple, actually. A lot of people have asked this question. They're like, "Oh, it's just so impossible." Okay, to get rid of identity politics.
To get rid of black racism.
Impossible to get rid of racism. Oh, it's really interesting. I see so many people in the conversation we're going to watch. Myron Gaines makes this whole thing about like, oh, it's impossible to get rid of the racism, blah, 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 blah. At the same token, how is it on one hand, people are saying it's impossible to get rid of, this kind of in-group racism. On the other hand, They're complaining that for decades, white people were completely permissive of racism against them to go on.
Right.
And were not racist themselves. And it's like, well, you understand that that's a contradictory thing. If you have the entire, huge swaths of the white community were able to be anti-racist, to be against racism, and then so far so that they'd actually be tricked into being permissive of racism against themselves, then obviously anyone, any society, any culture can get rid of racism.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is.
And the way to do it is pretty simple. It's just you make it culturally unacceptable to be racist. And this is the problem.
At any level.
At any level. And this is a problem. It was culturally, after the Jim Crow era, it became very culturally, unacceptable for the next, 40 years, 50 years to be racist against black people. And you had all of society was, putting this cultural pressure saying, you can't be racist against black people. And that's great. The problem is it kind of it focused incorrectly. It shouldn't have been don't be racist against black people. It should just be don't be racist, period. That needed to be the focal point, the cultural focal point. And that kind of fell through the cracks. And then when you have wokeness kind of start to spin out of control in the mid 2010s, all of a sudden it's like this blatant racism against white people just takes off, goes insane, goes crazy. And there wasn't really a cultural immune response that had been programmed into our society to fight back against that.
Right.
But now we can do that because now we see exactly where it goes. We can all do it and say, no. The answer to all this is just, you can't be racist against anyone, period. End of story.
Yeah. How do we enforce that? I mean, look, GiveSendGo could have done something about it before any of this erupted, right? They were the stabbing GiveSendGo was up first, and a bunch of horrible shit was up there, and people complained about it, and they were like, "Nah, it'll be fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it." Yeah. Racism against white people doesn't exist. It's in your imagination. Of course, there's a bunch of comments on there basically saying, "Die, whitey." Why didn't they step in and say that's unacceptable?
Yeah,
they could have done it.
It's interesting because Piers Morgan talks to one of the GiveSendGo co-founders here, and this guy is not like woke at all. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Like this guy, he's very Christian. He's very much like, oh yeah, we're completely free speech, except if you're promoting abortion and transing children, which I thought was kind of funny. So they didn't, at least he's not coming at it from this woke perspective. So it's just, as I said, people took racism against black people and minorities very seriously in America because there's a history of racial violence, there's a history of segregation, legal segregation against minorities in this country that didn't exist for white people until recently, where now you're literally seeing companies come out and say, oh, we're not going to hire white people anymore. We're not going to do things for white people anymore. We're just going to allow everyone to be very openly racist against white people, etc. Right. And I don't think it's not that complicated. All it takes is for people on the left, which is already starting to shift, but there needs to be more push for this. People on the left, people in the Democratic Party, all these people to just say, fuck you, racism is not acceptable. Racism against white people is not acceptable, period. Mm-hmm. As part of why, Mark Lamont Hill is such a part of why he is such a terrible advocate, because he is so one-sided in this conversation. He's so one-sided in his view of all of this stuff completely that he can't just the woke.
Well, he is a fucking racist. Mark Lamont Hill is a racist.
The woke need to be just driven out and expelled from the conversation.
They do.
Because they are bad actors and they will not help anything. The same way that the white nationalists and the overt racist need to be driven out of the conversation, the woke need to be treated to that same level of this. They're just racist and they need to be driven out of the conversation. They're incredibly toxic.
Anti-Semites, completely racist people. So
yes.
Anyway, all right, so let's go.
Here's the thing. White people have been under attack for years. It's been systematic racism. As much as black people and people of color want to talk about systematic racism in the United States, it's quite the opposite. They get preferential treatment when it comes to getting a job, when it comes to getting into colleges. White people, on the other hand, have been getting attacked relentlessly. Look at 2016 and BLM and all the riots. We just had to sit back and watch people burn down our cities and do nothing about it. So the way to fight back against essentially this anti-white hatred that's been systemically, ingrained in U.S. society is with white unity. We don't see white unity on
hang on. Okay, but hang on. Sorry, just to be clear.
But see, this is why, like,
Oh my God.
and this is why this is, and it kind of comes back to the conversation of like, Sitch, how do you convince someone who's like repeating woke talking points, about caring about racism against white people? If they, I mean, first of all, you hope they should just care about it on a moral level, right? But a lot of people have been indoctrinated in all this stuff. And this is exactly it. It's the most obvious psychological response to the situation. And it makes sense. There's a logical sense to it. If you're going to be attacked on the basis of your racial identity, what do? You unify around that racial identity. That's what every minority has done. So obviously that's what majority is going to do in a country. If you do that, if that's the path you go down.
Well, you're forcing the unification because that's the group you're attacking. They're unifying under being attacked. So
exactly, 100%. And then it gets even worse because you have people like this who they use the mask of free speech. They use the mask of anti-white racism to basically just push their flavor of racism, their flavor of white nationalism.
Unfortunate.
And this lady's actually extra weird because so she she's half Jewish. This is kind of funny. She's half Jewish, and then she had some bad falling out with her father who was Jewish, so she changed her name to his mother's maiden name because her father's last name was like Jewish sounding. So she changes her name to her mother's maiden name, who doesn't sound Jewish, and she starts going off on X about how like the Jews are destroying America. And it really just seems to me like daddy's issues. Like you have some issue with your dad, and now it's being projected to like the world.
Yeah, she is also trying to make it in the social media sphere. So
That's a good point,
is all about making money, and we know how to make money, right? You be as incendiary as humanly possible, which is super unfortunate, but that's the incentive structure.
There is, especially, it's kind of interesting because a lot of, the Groyper area has a lot of, the incel energy. And so, yes, if you're like an attractive woman, you dye your hair blonde and you start talking about how, brown people are bad and, white pride, even if you're Jewish, you start talking about how the Jews are bad and destroying the country, then yeah, you're right. You're going to get a lot of money. You're going to get a lot of clicks. You're going to get a lot of fame.
Yeah.
So it could be completely cynical.
She's got good limo rings.
She does.
She's in the game.
Clear. This has got nothing to do with anything you've just said. This is a disgusting racist woman who repeatedly spews the N-word, first at a young child and then at the person taking the video of her, does it with complete impunity, does it numerous times. We are talking about a bona fide, unquestionable racist. And so I don't understand why what you've just said to me bears any relation to white unity or anything that you've just said. She's just a racist. End, isn't she? You wouldn't dispute that.
It's not about her. It's not about her. It's about
white people finally
coming together and supporting another white person. And it doesn't matter.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in a country.
No, that's fine. You can support free speech, but you also have to be accountable for what you say. Would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would?
Mm-hmm. I do, quite frankly.
He's like
you use
shocked.
the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist. Are you?
Some would say I am. I guess according to the ADL, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a neo-Nazi.
If you use the N-word repeatedly, you are a racist, then, are you?
Sure, I'll embrace that. If that means forwarding, helping white people achieve freedom of speech, real freedom of speech, which, by the way, Shiloh Hendricks is being attacked on all fronts. They're trying to bring legal charges against her. They're trying to get her children taken away. So you were saying Carmelo Anthony, it doesn't matter. That's a different.
Sorry, but just to be clear, you just said to me you use the N-word regularly. In what context? Do you use it with black people?
It's very similar to Hassan's, we can't talk about my behavior because there's kids dying in Gaza.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right. It's like, well, listen, people are, wrongfully trying to, I don't even know if this is true, but, even if it was true. I'm sure there's someone trying to do it somewhere. I'm sure there's someone that's trying to destroy Charlotte Hendricks' life, which I think is completely
They had
wrong.
the police investigate her.
Yeah, having the police investigate her, completely insane. Trying to take her kids away, completely insane. All that stuff, yeah, completely insane, completely wrong, completely immoral. And then someone's like, well, because that's something else somewhere's happening, that lets me do a bad behavior, right? Because something else somewhere, we have to talk about this horrible thing that's happening. We have to talk about the kids that are dying in Gaza. So we can't talk about, something bad that I'm doing right here.
The reaction on the panel is just all over the map. Myron Gaines is like laughing. The woman on the far right is just grimacing.
Yes.
It's kind of insane. And obviously Piers was not expecting that answer, which is unusual. Like, why did he invite this? He doesn't know anything about this woman. Why did he invite her on? Well, he was like, what?
Well, because usually the way like the dance goes is you have someone who's like super racist on X. You talk to them on a larger platform. They sort of hide their power
and they
level.
Ignore it. Yeah, you're right.
They hide their power level, and then they try to suck people in. But now there's this idea where it's like, oh, well, I'm just gonna wear with pride the badge of racist in order to try to to further weaken the power, because the left has done so much damage to the power of the term racism. They've diminished it so much. So now the idea is for people that are actually racist, people that are actually white nationalists, to say I'm just going to be open about it and kind of muddy the water to further, ruin the concept behind the word.
Yeah, she's so bitter right now because she came to the game. Well, look, she's been saying the N-word right and left. I've seen her all over social media doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she hasn't capitalized on it with the $500,000 GiveSendGo. So even if she drops the M-bomb here on this show, everyone's going to be like, we hear from you all the time.
It's not special, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How can she say she's being canceled for the N-word from Piers Morgan if she's already been canceled?
Blowing up from it. Yeah.
Yes, if it's appropriate.
When would it be appropriate to use the N-word? When would it be appropriate?
Anytime I feel like it.
So you're an unashamed racist.
Correct.
Well, do you understand that makes you a despicable human being?
I guess so. I don't really care. I mean, why are we not talking about Shiloh Hendricks? Why are we talking about?
Well, actually, I think you've moved it on in this debate very quickly to your own racism, which explains why you've supported her in public and why you've got all these views. You see no problem with a woman shrieking the N-word repeatedly because you yourself are a despicable racist, and you've just proudly admitted that with a smug grin on your face.
Did she say the N-word repeatedly? I think she said it once on video and once before the video. And I don't know if she says it regularly or she was just pissed off because of this situation. I don't think it's fair to make it seem like she's a grand wizard of the KKK, this Shiloh person.
Yeah, I don't agree with Pierce's take on the Shiloh Hendricks situation, or because we're going to watch it. He thinks that the GiveSendGo people should take down her page, which I don't agree with that either.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah, no.
Fuck you.
I don't agree with Pierce on that at all. I believe in the video she said it more than once. I wasn't counting, but she does say it more than once.
She
calls
does.
the guy, I believe she calls the guy filming her the N-word more than once. So.
Should have called him a pedo.
Well, if she knew, right? If she knew it was a pedo. But
well, I mean, you can never be too safe. He might have been more hesitant to upload it if she was calling him a pedo in it, right?
That's a great point.
That's the way to fight back right there.
Immediately been like, do you have a child here? I mean, obviously when you're in a situation, you're kind of like, you're angry,
triggered.
You're
not thinking correctly, but
you're like, do you have a child here? Like, why are you a grown man filming children on the playground, right?
Yes, exactly. Completely turned it around on him. And then he'd think, I got a lot of editing to do on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty horrifying, actually, for most people to have to watch. And shame on you. You're entitled to do it, and I'm entitled to call you despicable.
This is so fascinating. So he says, look, this is shameful for people to watch. At the end of the video, he's begging her to use the N-word on his show. This guy, he's not the harbinger of morality here.
Pierce knows where the television is, all right? He knows where the ratings are. He knows where the gold is.
Yeah, but this is all just faux disgust. He's not really disgusted by this. If he's going to ask her to say it, why is he asking her to say it?
I don't agree. I think he really is disgusted by it, considering how he reacts to the GiveSendGo guy. Right. That does seem real, but at the same time, yes, it's like it is real disgust, but at the same time, it's like I'm gonna use it to, like, drive ratings and stuff.
This is all. So much of this I just think is bullshit. I think it's total bullshit.
Well, shame on white people for allowing themselves to be systematically discriminated against in the United States. This is our country. This is a country that should be.
What do you mean your country?
Because I'm white and my
What, there are no black people in American history? Is that what you're saying? That they've all just landed in America, invading your white country? Is that your position?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they were brought here technically.
My God, do you understand how dumb you sound?
This is stupid. This is stupid and racist, and at some point we have to ask ourselves, do we want to reward this kind of disgusting behavior by platforming it?
I don't disagree, Mark. Listen, I didn't know she was going to say that. I don't disagree with you.
No.
Piers has the complete background on her. It's obvious now. That's why he went down this line of questioning. He does know. He completely knows.
That's what you think?
Of course. Yeah.
Maybe.
He's trying to get her to go as far as she will. It's interesting.
Well, she kind of, it was interesting because she kind of backed off too, because she did the whole like, yes, I'm a racist. Right. And then when Piers starts like berating her, she sort of starts backing down a little bit on the whole thing. So she obviously wasn't, she's like trying to do the thing, but she's not super comfortable yet with doing the thing.
It makes me think Piers' disgust is completely fake. Makes me think he's a big fat faker.
Well, as I said, the reason I don't think it is because why would he has like this 5-10 minute conversation with the GiveSendGo guy, telling him that you should take down the GiveSendGo. If it was fake, why would he care?
His disgust, for television. I don't know. I haven't seen that clip, so
okay. And I think when you see that, maybe it'll change your mind on his disgust level being real.
No, yeah. I'm with you. I don't think you knew ahead of time. I'm saying at this moment, someone who's saying it's technically black people brought up. No, technically, Africans were stolen, enslaved, and they built this country. And the idea that you can justify calling a baby the N-word by saying that white people are losing the country is absurd. It's morally bankrupt, and it's honestly besides the point. I mean, all these are just distractions from the fact that she wants to justify dehumanizing and even animalizing a small black child. It's disgusting.
What is it?
Yeah, I never said that.
No, but you may as well have done because you're just an unashamed.
That's the implication of your racist.
Let me bring in Myron Gaines because you've been smirking and laughing. What's funny about
Myron Gaines there?
Well, I mean, I find it interesting that you guys want to virtue signal and wag the finger and say she's a racist and everything else like this.
No, she admitted she's a racist.
Well, let me
I'm not wagging a finger at anybody.
She self-identified as a racist.
But Myron, with respect, Myron, I don't need to wag a finger when somebody says, yeah, I'm racist. I use the N-word against black people. I don't care. That's a racist. I'm not wagging any finger. I'm not accusing anybody. She is admitting it proudly. Even you can't defend that, surely.
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is...
That's not the good response there. Everybody's doing it is not the good response.
Well, it's funny because again, this goes on the same trajectory as like the woke. It was like woke's not happening, so communism is happening, and then it's like okay, it is happening, but it's good, right? And the same thing, like nice people are racist, and then now they're trying to. Some of these people are trying to transition it to, well, I am racist and it's a good thing. So that transition is trying to happen on sort of this, extreme kind of white nationalist area. And Myron is like still stuck in phase one. And so that's why he's like, oh, how dare you call her racist? And it's like, well, I mean, she called herself racist. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah, this is Myron's audience all the way.
Yeah. Well, he 100% knows what's going on. For me, I mean, maybe for me, from my perspective, he's doing it just entirely as a grift. He knows that's where the money is. He makes a shit ton of money basically doing this grift. So
yeah,
a lot of people want to be politically correct. A lot of people want to sit there and say, I'm not racist at all. We all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all make jokes. We all are racist to some degree. Now, how racist you are is a whole other situation, but everyone is racist. That's number one. Next thing I want to say, See,
I mean, that is the leftist perspective right there. Everyone's racist.
Yes,
everyone has implicit bias. Yeah.
Right. Only, yeah, they say, it's funny because they say everyone's racist, so that's why you have to go through the struggle session. Yeah. And he's saying, well, everyone's racist, so that it, I guess, excuses anyone from being racist because everyone.
He just did amazing by Robin DiAngelo standards. He just came out, admitted it.
Right.
See, I think the Shiloh, Hendricks, and Metcalf situation is a microcosm of a much bigger problem. And that bigger problem is what I call systemic organization. And what I mean by this is for decades, we've had black people literally running around with black supremacy, committing crimes, not getting accountability for their actions, and then they blame the system for it. For example, George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson, criminals. Freddie Gray, criminal. A lot of these people are criminals, and what ends up happening is they challenge the police officer, they get into a physical altercation, things go left, they die, something happens, use of force is utilized, and then they want to cry about the result, when in reality, it's not the police killing black people, it's black people killing black people. And if you want to talk about black on white violence, black people kill white people 2 times as much. And on top of that, most of the shootings in America, a lot of the times, are white people killing, white cops killing other unarmed white men. So this whole systemic racism or police brutality, or, oh, it's all so messed up, the reality is this. Black people have been able to get away with a ridiculous amount of privilege in America for a very long time. They're able to be racist with impunity. They're able to call white people crackers without being challenged back. And quite frankly, white America's had enough of it, and the chickens have come to roost. Now, look, am I saying that's...
So this is why that Ben Shapiro clip is so perfect, because that's all this is. Again, if you're calling all this out to say, okay, well, we need to reestablish the standard. No one can be racist. We need to have, our various cultures in America, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of socioeconomic class. People need to do better. They need to be better. They need to be productive citizens and all this stuff. Okay, that's sort of the direction that we need to be pushing for, not the whole. Well, because there was a double standard, which there was culturally, therefore we just going to spiral now into white identitarianism. We're going to spiral down into, actually overt racism, which isn't going to solve the problem, because this is it's so self-defeating. It's kind of reminiscent of, I don't know if you've heard Kanye's new song.
No, I haven't.
So Kanye's new song is called Heil Hitler. Okay.
Oh my God.
And
get the fuck out of here.
I'm 100%. That's what it's called.
He's going back to that well again.
He's going back to that well. After the incest, pedo cousin stuff, right? You have to go back to Nazism.
Right. He's got to come up with something worse so people stop talking about how he's a pedo.
Exactly. And so in the song, the lyrics of the song are, they took my kids away. I just want to see my kids. I want to see my kids. And then he keeps saying how Hitler is like the chorus. Okay. And
oh my God, do your kids want to see you?
Well, so the reason I bring this up is because I watched Sneeko, who's been hanging out now with Kanye, which is a little sus, but okay. Sneeko's been hanging out with Kanye, and he's been like filming all this stuff. So I was watching because I was kind of curious, because Kanye walked out of some Piers Morgan interview and Sneeko was left standing there, and it was like very awkward and funny and weird.
Sneeko called himself Kanye's muse in that interview, and I was a little taken aback by that framing.
Well, when I was listening to Sneeko's like stream at Kanye's house, like Sneeko's completely in a cult. Like the way that he talks about Kanye, he is 100% in a cult, how he views him.
Right.
So I don't know what kind of shenanigans are going on down there. Okay.
Shenanigans, huh? Yeah, that's what the kids are calling it now.
I'm just saying, listen, I would be surprised if this shenanigans going on between the two.
I've had some muses before, okay?
Yes.
Have
you had some same-sex muses?
No, I've never had a same-sex muse. So
okay.
Yes.
But no, so the reason I bring all this up is because in that stream, Sneeko's there and like some editor of his is there, some friends are there, and they're talking about how like, well, first of all, it completely plays in the Jordan Peterson's conversation about this, where like so much of them saying the N-word and the Heil Hitler stuff, it's just like they're just doing it because it's transgressive. Like they're like he, it's transgressive, right?
Sure.
Kind of
they
like
want to trigger people,
attitude.
yeah.
Yeah, they want to trigger people, right? But there's another element to that is actually really sad and disturbing to me, which is that they're talking about they have some real love of Kanye, either because of his music and all this other stuff. And they're like, we just really want to help him get his kids back. We really want to help him be able to interact and see his kids. Oh my God. And I'm sitting here listening to this, and they sound sincere when they're saying this. And I'm like, okay, like, you understand that if you want Kanye to be able to like have a relationship with his kids, where he's like a functioning parent, having him walk around with his, wife naked, having him talk about, pedo stuff, having him, do all the Nazi shit. None of this is going to help him like be able to see his kids again. It's the exact fucking opposite. You're making him completely repellent to being able to see his kids again, to have any functioning relationship with his kids. It's the exact opposite of the stated goal. And it's sad. And it's the same thing with what Myron's talking about. Because if white people, if a quarter of the country, because you're not going to get the full country, like the fucking gripers and the white nationalists, they're a complete delusion. If like a quarter of the country at the best, embraces the white nationalist shit, okay, all that's going to do is make the woke backlash 10 times worse. Because they're going to say, look, all woke people are going to stand around and start applauding and patting themselves on the back and saying, look, we told you that there are all these Nazis, that there are all these white nationalists, and look, here they are. They're all so open about it. And obviously the woke people aren't going to, admit and realize that they're what created it, but it's going to be the best weapon that the woke has to gain power. When woke is finally on the way out, and now you have these dumb fuck white nationalists who are like, let's just save the embers of the woke fire and let it go ravaging again. Let's make it worse than it was before by literally trying to prove them correct. And that's exactly what's going to happen if that movement continues to take off.
Yeah, the levels of I told you so are going to be off the charts. They're going to come back and be like, Adam, remember when you were saying racism wasn't that bad? Well, look now. Look now.
Right.
And exactly. I'm just going to be like, oh, these motherfuckers. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be awful. It's going to be awful.
You caused it, you son of a bitch. I've been saying that forever, though, obviously. The woke people are completely emboldening. I mean, they're emboldening racism in the black community, too. I don't want to make it seem like the entire black community is racist. Obviously, there are plenty of black people who are not racist at all, right? Mm-hmm. Same as, any community. But it's just the cultural norm of letting the black people who are racist get away with it has to fucking go.
Right.
Yeah.
Anonymous Coward for $22 says, this girl got viral for making a tradesman video complaining men being broke ass N-words. Gripers were calling her out for being a grifting single mother. Content creators, including Piers, have been opportunistic for clout.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
I'm not even sure she's really racist, to be honest with you.
She's doing it for the
she's maybe just completely faking it. That's another thing too, because obviously I grew up in the 80s and 90s where, I grew up in California. My friend group was completely multicultural, right? Mm-hmm. People would make racist jokes against one another, and nobody gave a fuck. That was like the norm, to rib other
100%
guys. Obviously it was more of a guy thing than a woman thing, right?
Right.
But obviously the guys would be like completely ribbing each other based on race, because that's a good way to make fun of one another. Yeah, but all that would be cast as racism in today's environment.
Right. Well, and that's sort of part of the issue with all the woke nonsense. Because yes, a lot like the woke frame, it's all a very feminine frame. It's a very female frame of looking at things. Doesn't respect that, yes, a lot of male friendships is made by people making fun of each other. A lot of people make fun of each other in racialized ways. And when guy friends are doing it, it's fine because they know, like, they're friends. They know they're not actually racist. So it's like, of course, it's a fine environment to do all that stuff in. So,
of course.
Awesome. Am I saying that's great? No, but for literally the better part of almost 2 decades since the Obama era, we've had to have BLM and liberalism shoved down our throats, and quite frankly, we're all tired of it.
Right, but just to be clear, you would have no problem with one member of this panel openly saying she uses the N-word at black people with impunity and is proud of being a racist. You have no problem with that?
My worldview on the protection of the First Amendment and freedom of speech overrides my personal feelings. She has the right to say
That's fine.
it.
You can support the First Amendment, but you can also have a personal view about what she said.
Isn't it hilarious that it's so funny? We just watched that Hassan video, right? And Ethan very well kept snapping on Hassan, saying, hold on. I'm not saying what someone has a right to do. Okay. I'm not asking whether you are iDubbbz or if you are Frogan. I'm asking you, what is your opinion on the morality of the action? Okay. And here we see Myron Gaines the exact same Hassan tactic. Okay. Well, she has a right to say it. I didn't ask if she has a right to say it. It's not what I asked.
He can't say that he thinks it's immoral, because then all of a sudden he's calling 90% of his audience immoral.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Right.
So,
but that's what's really going on here.
But he can't come out and say, oh, it's totally fine and moral, because Piers Morgan will be like, you're a fucking racist.
Right.
My feelings are irrelevant. The Constitution is the Constitution. That's what matters.
Oh, that's fascinating. Hold on. So when it comes to chastising Black Americans about their behavior, about calling white people crackers, as you say, about their moral claims about the racist system, you can levy a judgment against Black Americans for all the things they do. But when it comes to this woman saying the N-word, and this other woman endorsing it and saying that she herself uses the N-word, now all of a sudden we can only talk about the Constitution and the legal right. We can't offer any moral judgment against it. That's disingenuous. And it's as the only Black American up here, that's quite frustrating to hear.
Well, the difference is none of the Black Americans are in Myron's audience, okay? All right? Get it right.
No. Didn't you hear Mark Lamont Hill? He said only the Uncle Toms are in his audience.
Oh, he's cornered the market on the Uncle Toms.
Right.
Wait, that's not fair. That's not fair. He shouldn't be calling him an Uncle Tom.
Obviously, he shouldn't. Yes, obviously.
And look, if a Black person disagrees and wants to join Myron's audience, I don't think we should be referring to them as Uncle Toms either.
Obviously.
So, yeah.
These are the jokes.
If you want to be soft and get offended by that, that's your fucking problem, not mine.
Let me ask Ricky.
But see, he's such a coward, because again, it's like I'm asking you a very specific question.
Who's the soft one?
Right? Yeah. I'm asking you, what is your feelings on it? And he's like, well, I'm not going to tell. He's literally said, I'm not going to tell you my feelings on it. Okay.
Right.
It's like, well, why? Why are you so scared to tell the world what your feelings on it, Mr. Fresh and Fit here? Okay. You're so scared you won't tell people what you really think about something?
Right.
Interesting.
It is.
We're not even.
Let me ask Ricky. Ricky,
this isn't about being soft any more than when you were desperately saving these white people.
Hold on. This sensitive nature that you have is precisely why we have this problem.
It's not about being sensitive. It's about I didn't articulate. Hold on. Let me finish, Myron. Let me speak and then I'll let you respond. Myron, sure. I didn't articulate any sensitivity here. What I said, in the same way that you levied a judgment against Black people, I'm levying one against the claims you're making. I'm no more sensitive than you were when you made your claim. I'm simply saying I disagree with you. And to immediately jump to you're being sensitive is just a distraction. I'm making an argument here. Just respond to my argument.
If you're struggling with sleepless nights and exhaustion,
Are you struggling with sleepless nights?
All the time. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
Yeah, I never sleep. Sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Sleep is for the cucked.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do it, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fall for the BS.
The BS sleep.
You need to sleep. Some people tell you need to sleep 8 hours a day. They're fucking liars.
You know who tells you that? Women
Cucks.
and liberals. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
They tell you.
And cucks.
And cucks. Yes.
Now, and my argument to respond to that is this. Political correctness, liberalism, and making sure that we are politically correct and don't use certain words that offend people is precisely why we're in the situation that we're in. For decades, we've had to literally tiptoe around saying certain things around certain people, while the other group of people has been able to have impunity and be able to be as racist as they want to be, as violent as they want to be, without any type of consequence. And if you call it out, you're labeled a racist. The reality is this.
This is all very reminiscent of Marxism, where it's like, we're going to levy a bunch of criticisms of the current system, which are true, right? These are all true criticisms. We're going to levy a bunch of criticisms that are true, but then when you get to the, well, what do you do about it? That's when it goes like off the fucking rails. It goes into crazy town.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so conflicted on this issue just because I think so much of it is driven by the actual environment Like I would want to go back to a time when people could make edgy jokes and stuff like that, and people didn't lose their minds.
Of course, that'd be wonderful, right?
So I do fall on the free speech side of it. But if all of a sudden we start turning into Nazi Germany and people like really mean it, these aren't just edgy jokes. These are real fucking racists that are saying detestable things. Then we need to dial it back culturally. Obviously, we've got the First Amendment to deal with continually, but morally, right? People need to be keeping each other in check. So it's a tough. There's no real black and white answer here.
Well, and it goes back again to the whole people they're advocating for positions that undermine their stated goal, right? Because exactly as you laid it out, the reason that our society was like you could do all these edgy jokes, when I was younger, was because people felt like, oh, I'm going to assume that person isn't like actually terrible or is not actually bad.
Yeah, you're friends with them. Yeah.
Right. It's a joke. Okay, I understand that, that's not actually what's going on here. Our society, our culture, the environment feels safe enough that you believe that, no, it's just a joke, that they're not actually as racist running around. But then now, if you have a bunch of actual racists, a bunch of actual white nationalists running around and being very open about it, it completely undermines your ability to be funny, to tell edgy joke, because you're like, well, there's a bunch of people who actually do mean it. So the environment's completely different.
Yeah. Sick.
Yep.
Black people don't want to live around black people. I don't want to live around a bunch of black people. I move to neighborhoods where it's majority white because I know I'm safe. Now, this is uncomfortable reality that no one wants to say, so I'll say it for them. Black people commit a lot of crimes. A majority of the violent crime committed in the United States is committed by a small percentage of people, and they tend to be black men. Look, the reality is the reality. People don't want to say it, but the political correctness and being nice and not wanting to tell the truth is precisely this problem. And the reason why you're seeing all the support for Metcalf and Shiloh.
Isn't this this is literally the exact argument the feminists make. They say majority of crime, majority of sexual assault, majority of rape, they're all done by men. Period. So men are obviously the problem.
Well, he's saying, okay. Yeah, you can't say that about black men because black men are not the problem. It's the criminals that are the problem. Like Mark Lamont Hill emboldens this because his whole presence is out there giving young black men an excuse to become criminals. Society is against you. Everyone is racist. All white people hate your guts, right? You hear the N-word in a Quentin Tarantino movie and it means all white people fucking hate you, which is just not a good, like if you grow up believing that, obviously you have every excuse in the world to turn to criminality.
Of course. And of course, and Mark Lamont Hill, he operates from also just as insane hypocritical position where he thinks you can like just be racist against white people and it's fine. You can just be a black nationalist and it's fine. And that's not going to breed all these same problems that he claims that he cares about.
Yeah, he completely is doing a disservice to what he claims to want. But I just think he's a race grifter, so I don't think he gives a fuck, to be honest with you.
My sense of him, I think he does care. I just think he's just so ideologically possessed by his weirdo far left socialism that he just he believes. I think he honestly does believe like the CRT idea that
all white people are racist.
Well, yeah, that all white people are racist, but then also just that like democracy and liberalism and free speech and all stuff like is all just an excuse for white people to be racist. Like he thinks that that's all like going on anyway. I think that's his worldview, and it's like a paranoia worldview. It's kind of interesting. And there's a long James Lindsay, Jordan Peterson conversation recently, which has its good points and bad points in it.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
But they do talk about how like a lot of the people that are in these movements, they're people that like suffer from like massive paranoia, essentially, and that's definitely the way it seems to me.
Yeah, Derek Bell famously was just completely paranoid, delusional.
Yes, completely. Yes.
And he was the guy who started critical race theory, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because James Lindsay brings that up in the conversation. He says, Derek Bell would and this is crazy. He was not just like paranoid, delusional, but he was so narcissistic that he would create fake arguments with people, sometimes with real people. He's like, I'm going to argue a situation, and I'm so smart, I can like map out their entire, like all their responses to my conversation.
Right.
And then he would write that all down and then present that as if it was like evidence of something. It's like, what? Are you for real?
Ridiculous.
Etc. is because white people have not been able to step up and say what they want to say for a very long time because of what I said before, systemic, organized, where they don't take accountability for their
All right,
decisions.
let me bring in Ricky to respond. Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that I agree that virtue signaling went too far, that political correctness went too far, but we're going from virtue signaling being the norm and being praised to now vice signaling being the norm and being praised. It's not just a matter of does this...
Oh, that's a really great way to frame it.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
Vice signaling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Women have the right to use that word. I believe that she has the right. I disagree with it. But is she now being rewarded with $500,000? Why are we rewarding people for performing vice instead of virtue? This is not healthy. This is destructive to our society. This is destructive to our social fabric, to our culture, to our ability to live with other fellow Americans. It's gross to reward someone for bad behavior. It's one thing to tolerate it, to say that she has the right to do it, but she called an autistic 5-year-old the N-word. Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like we're kind of like missing the point in the actual context. You can say that it's part of this bigger meta story of black and white America, but it actually is just like a short little clip, and you don't even know the context of it, and it's actually gross. And if we can't just say that it's gross and bad, then I don't really know where we are.
Well, I think it's interesting to me.
I agree with all of that, but I have one point of contention. I don't think people should be so hasty to jump onto the autistic 5-year-old claim, because we don't really know that this kid is either autistic or 5 in the first place.
Yeah, I was going to say. I was going to ask, but I figured I asked before, and I don't know if we're any closer to an answer. I don't think anyone's tracked the kid down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think anyone
They're
knows.
just running with it.
Right. Like, well, I think there is a GiveSendGo or a GoFundMe or something for the family, and they're still
kid.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Of course. Wait. Of course. Of course there is.
Fuck all of these people.
Of course there is.
Fuck all of this shit.
Right. Of course there is. And they're still claiming that he's 5. Right. But I don't know. I'm skeptical of that. I'm skeptical of the autism thing. It sounds like bullshit to me. I think
it might not have even been done by the family. It might have been done by some other fucking internet grifter who just was sensed an opportunity.
It might be because they're still, I believe the family is still, I don't know if they've been doxxed, but I believe they're anonymous.
Anonymous, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, man.
That Lily Gaddis, you retweeted Nick Fuentes, the white supremacist, by saying he said black people just raised $500,000 for a cold-blooded killer who stabbed a white teenager to death. So I don't want to hear one word about the Shiloh Hendricks fundraiser. Either everyone gets to be tribal or nobody does. Why would you retweet that?
Because I agree with it. Because we have to fight fire with fire. I mean, at some point, why are
nobody does?
Why are Jewish people allowed to be tribal? Why are black people allowed to be tribal? But as soon as white people stand up,
Myron fucking loves that. Already she's talking about Jewish people. Myron's like, yeah, the glee on his face. I can't stand that shit.
There's an X post from this same woman from 2018 before the heel turn where she was complaining about anti-Semitism. She's like, oh my God, I actually wrote down. She says, the anti-Semitic, this is the same woman who's talking right now. She said in 2018, the anti-Semitic movement, which is beginning to reemerge, is a foul evil which we must pray and fight against.
Really?
Yes. So really just hones in on like the grift going on here.
She's in there for the heel turn. I think Myron's the same way. He's just capitalizing on it. It's sad that there's that much anti-Semitism in the world that you can monetize it.
Well, it's a lot of it is we have the twofolds. We have the double knockout here, which is that income inequality is just getting rapidly out of control. A lot of young people can't afford homes. They can't afford, a lot of the things that their parents could afford when they were their age. And then you combine it with the cultural problems where especially a lot of young men, they don't have girlfriends, they don't have wives, they don't have children, they don't have, the culture is sort of like breaking everyone's brain for a multitude of reasons. And obviously that's going to make everyone super resentful. And when everyone's super resentful, they want to look for someone to blame.
Yeah, it's completely lame.
up for themselves, we're labeled a racist. And by the way, you call people racist when you want them to stop talking about things.
No, I called you a racist because you admitted you were racist. Hang on. I called, just to be clear, I called you a racist because you openly, proudly admitted you're a racist. So it wasn't a question of exposing you or pointing my finger or trying to get this out of you. You proudly sat there, bold as brass, and said, yeah, I use the N-word all the time against black people. I'm a racist and I'm proud of it. That's what you did.
Racism is just having a preference. I prefer not to live around black people. I prefer not to live in a country where white people in our country are disproportionately attacked by black people. Where in my country, you can have an Austin Metcalf where he asks a guy to leave and he gets stabbed in the heart. I prefer that. That's a preference. Now, what a real racist is, in my opinion, is seeing someone as less human. I'm a Christian. I believe everyone's created in God's image. So I don't see anyone as less human. But that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have a preference and say, I don't like.
I love like the weird Christian like bent that now has been like inserted in this conversation. Like God has made us all in God's image, but some people were made a little bit closer to God's image. Obviously, it was the white people. The black people are, they're the bad ones, right?
Yeah, I don't like the framing, obviously, because I hate stereotypes. So, yeah. I mean, everyone wants to live around good people. Right.
Yes.
And I don't think it's, that white people have a lock on being a good person. There's plenty of white people that are fucking garbage people. So
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, again, it's literally all the same arguments that the feminists made. 100% the same arguments. They'd say men would disproportionately do all these crimes, do all these bad things, blah, blah, blah. So therefore men are the problem. It's the same thing with.
It's called the ecological fallacy. I don't know if you know that.
It's the same thing. We have with CRT. They'd be like, "Oh, well, white people are the problem of everything. White people are the conspiracy of everything." And then you have like the other version of that is like the JRT. Jews are the problem of everything. Jews are behind everything. Blah blah blah. You have the feminists say men do all the bad things. Men are the problems. Now we have actually no, it's black people that are all the problems. They do all the bad things. It's all the same arguments. They just switch. It's like Mad Libs. They just switch out. Who the party is.
Most violent crime is committed by men, but you can't say that most men commit violent crime.
That the majority of men are going out there committing violent crime. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Yes. You can't infer anything from some statistical analysis of the group about each individual in the group. So
exactly.
Obviously, and that's 99 or 95% of men are probably nonviolent.
Right. And it's an exact same thing with black men. Majority of black men are not going out there committing violent crimes.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
Like what happens to be coming out of this community or that community. How is that a bad thing? How is that not just a preference?
Because you've literally made black people sound lesser humans. You don't want to live around them. You want to use the N-word in relation to them, a word that causes that community unbelievable offense.
Is that my fault? If they have bad behavior, if they want to act in a certain way, if I have to cross the street and be afraid that maybe because of the crime statistics that are very real, by the way, is that my fault or is that their fault for having bad behavior?
That's mind-boggling to me for multiple reasons. I mean, we're
okay. Mark Lamont Hill, doesn't give good. Let's skip ahead a little bit here. So Piers has the GiveSendGo guy on. He's kind of interesting guy, but I really don't agree with Piers in this part of the conversation, like at all.
No, I think that's completely correct, Piers. I do think that there was an element here that did hijack, that came at this and really became a racist, tribalist element between the two campaigns. Independently of themselves, I think that they would have existed on our platform in a whole different manner, but because of the narratives around them and the proximity to each other, they created a life of their own. And it is unfortunate, it's sad to see, because as a Christian myself, what I respect about humanity and the image of God on us, I believe that we're all valuable. I believe that people have dignity and worth, and we want to see that upheld for people, even in difficult moments. That's why our platform exists, is to share hope with people. And it's been a difficult week, several weeks of just navigating the complexity of these situations as a platform.
Studies show that strength training burns
Strength training. Oh, I
Want some
love to
strength training?
train
Yeah.
my strength.
I know, it's great. J-Mac, our Circuit Fire, thanks so much for the $20. Says my friend group in high school was me, half Hispanic, a black guy, Hawaiian guy, and 2 white guys, Irish and Italian. All of our nicknames were slurs. It was truly a colorblind world. Yeah, no, I mean, it was exactly the same thing, with me. It was, my friend group was very, very mixed where I lived, and we were all hilariously offensive towards each other using racial slurs and ethnic slurs and all this other stuff. And listen, can we just go back? Can't we go back the best times, okay, where we could just call each other racial slurs and it was actually funny and full of love and joy instead of hate?
That's what we need to get back to. Yes.
Right.
No more microaggressions talk. That's bullshit. That is weak and feminine.
Yes.
But a 5-year-old autistic child, it seems, then an adult who's filming her doesn't care, is blatantly racist. Why should someone like that be allowed to raise any money on your site if, as you say, you are driven by a Christian purpose?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I would almost flip it around. It's like if we tried to create litmus tests for everybody to come onto a platform to use it, I pretty much could guarantee nobody would pass the litmus test, because the reality of humanity is that we're broken. This is the whole principle of Jesus in the first place, says, is that we needed a savior, and that's what he came for.
So just to be clear, then, hang on, just to be clear, so that's interesting what you just said. So you would let anybody onto your platform to raise money for anything? Is that your position?
No, the position is that there are laws that define what is legal and what isn't legal. And we adhere to the laws as the framework for what is and isn't allowed.
But inciting racial hatred is a crime, right?
Inciting racial hatred is a crime?
Yeah.
Where?
You don't think it's a crime?
In the U.S.?
Yeah, it is.
I've never seen that as a...
I object to that being what she was trying to do. She wasn't trying to incite racial hatred. Maybe the guy who filmed it and uploaded it to the internet was trying to... to incite racial hatred. But the woman caught in the video was not trying to do that.
No, 100%. And that is a good point.
It's fucking bullshit.
Also, Piers is incorrect. There's no crime that's inciting racial hatred isn't a crime.
Yeah.
What is a crime is trying to incite people to commit violence against a person or against a group of people. That's a crime.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
like this vague, claim here is not.
Inciting violence is a crime.
Yes.
That's why we have stochastic terrorism, so they don't have to just come out and incite the violence. They just hint at it as
there you go.
much as humanly possible, right?
Right, exactly.
Law on the books, but
it is.
That was part of the reason.
I'm not even American, and I know it's a law on the books. You're not allowed to incite racial hatred or violence against ethnic groups based on their ethnicity. What could be a more glaring example than someone on camera calling black people the N-word?
Violence and words.
I think we have Shoe on Head, Think Before You Sleep, and Actual Justice Warrior in our chat. What's up, y'all?
Hey, what's going on?
Are two different things, and we do make a distinction of that in America. They are very clearly different things. I don't know of any law. I'd be happy for you to inform me with what that law is, because I don't know everything. I'm happy to admit that. But as has already been mentioned on the show earlier, there are needs that exist outside of the reality of that moment for Shiloh. I don't condone the behavior. Obviously, we didn't see the actual behavior that was accused in the moment. What we saw was the aftermath of a kind of baited moment.
Thank you.
But she carries on using the N-word to a black person with impunity. That's a racist.
Oh my God. I fucking hate smug Piers Morgan, okay? I fucking hate this guy.
I knew you were gonna like Pierce's reaction to this, yeah.
This is like way too far.
I
don't like the racist stuff. People think I'm too far in the Piers Morgan direction, but he's like off the edge of the cliff already. This is insane.
Both of them are they're both making bad arguments because the counter argument to the GiveSendGo guy would be like, well, even in her phrasing of her GiveSendGo, which happened, I don't know, however long afterwards, She's not like, oh, I said something heated moment. She's like, I called someone out for like acting the way they were acting, right? Like she's not repentant about, calling a kid the N-word or something. So like obviously she's not a great person. Now, does that mean that she should have her GiveSendGo taken down? I don't think so, right?
No,
I mean,
of course not.
It is America. You are allowed to call people the N-word, and people are allowed to give you money for it, even if I think that's morally reprehensible.
And look, if this was illegal, they should arrest the guy who uploaded the video, not the chick. So he's the one that's guilty of trying to incite a race riot.
Yes. Now Piers at some point in this conversation is going to try to ferret out some kind of interesting moral preference hypocrisy as we see in this conversation, but
might have some racial elements. I don't know. I don't know Shiloh
some
personally.
racial elements. She uses the N-word repeatedly to a black man, and she doesn't deny having just used it to a 5-year-old black child. I'm not sure what more evidence you need that this person's a racist. And my question for you is simply, where is that line for you? You say it's the law.
Well,
but if somebody is literally raising hundreds of thousands of dollars to support them because they were blatantly racist, I'm just curious how that fits with the Christian ethos of what.
I can't abide by this analysis, especially if someone's triggered. I think someone who doesn't have a racist bone in their body, if they're triggered, they have road rage against somebody, they could easily call them the N-word or whatever racial slur they think is appropriate for the person. And I don't think we should be condemning them for all fucking eternity because they got mad and used a racial slur. That's just,
100%.
That's wrong. That is immoral.
Yeah.
That position is completely immoral.
Yes, completely.
What your site's supposed to be about.
Well, it fits actually very well because we can, like I started to say, we don't operate on a litmus test of your past behaviors as far as the services that you get to provide. The moment that you start walking down the narrative that we're not going to provide you electricity, water, because we don't like you, the structural elements, the movement of money, which is a basic element to society.
So let me just ask you this. So if someone was being...
And that's all true. Great argument. Completely against the banking, also their bullshit.
Blatantly anti-Semitic, for example, right? Would you allow them to raise money on your platform to defend themselves over their anti-Semitism?
We sit in a very interesting position as a platform in trying to navigate the complexities of these issues.
Yeah, so what's the answer, though? What's the answer?
You can say things. Well, I'll say historically, we've stood on that principle of saying we're going to allow things that we disagree with.
Okay.
And we've allowed things that we completely disagree with.
Do you allow
on the
people
platform.
to do
But
pro-abortion? Do you allow pro-abortion fundraising?
Actually, there's two caveats to what GiveSendGo has carved out, and one of them is it's broken into two pieces, but it's the protection of children. So we say we're going to protect children because they don't have a voice. So we're not going to allow fundraising for abortions on GiveSendGo, and we're not going to allow fundraising for the transition of children.
Okay, but what about a 5-year-old child what about a 5-year-old black child being called?
Ooh. Okay, so how do we square this circle? Is there a square to this circle here? Or is it just, people have their moral preferences and that's just the end of it? And it's a private thing and they're going to just say, well, we don't like abortion and transing. So,
Well, both those are conservative issues, obviously. So it just appears like political bias.
Yeah. Well, that's what, I mean, I assume it's his religious bias or the organization's religious bias if they're a Christian organization. So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't think people should be transing kids.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be allowing strangers to like trans other people's kids, right?
Well, obviously, yes. Okay, obviously.
If a woman is fundraising for her own abortion,
right?
I'm not sure there. I mean, she could be 40 years old and just not be able to afford another kid, right? She could be happily married.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
It's always complicated with these things because there always is going to be a level of moral preference. I mean, it definitely hurts his argument in terms of we're completely free speech. We're even in favor of things that we don't agree with. And then it's like, well, except for this. Because imagine the situation was something completely morally reprehensible. Like, I don't know, the woman, there's some video of some person, they're not saying the N-word. They're saying that they're a map or something, right?
Right.
They want, they want to normalize, that disgusting map shit.
Right.
The CP, the weird.
They're
CP
raising
shit.
money for a child sex doll or something.
Right,
oh,
right,
God.
right.
Oh,
right. And so it's like,
no. Ban that shit.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's like, well, as long as they're not
immediately.
Exactly. And then they'll make the argument like, well, they're not advocating for actually harming a child, so therefore it's just free speech and it's okay. And you say, well, like maybe legally, technically it's true, but it's obviously it's so morally disgustingly reprehensible that we all want that person banned from existence.
Right. Yeah.
And so
not just banned from the platform. We want them thrown
banned
in the
from existence. Yes. Want them purged from existence. And so it's like, that's why, he was getting these like obnoxious moral quandaries. We're like, okay, well, that our moral preferences of being against that are stronger than like the free speech principle that we're advocating for.
I know you're getting sketchy waters there. I don't.
Yes.
Oh God.
I don't know what the answer to that is, but
yeah. Well, no, I think the answer is ban that shit.
Well, I mean, yes.
I don't
I'm
think
saying
it should be on the platform. But
I agree. I'm saying I
you
don't know
have
what the answer
the ability.
is.
If I'm
Yes.
head of the platform, it's definitely getting banned. But
to be clear, yes. Hold on. To be clear,
Mhm.
the answer is to ban them. I'm saying I don't know what the answer is to the constructing your principle argument.
yeah, your reasoning by
Yes, the
why you're
reasoning.
banning them. Me, I'm just
Yes.
like it's fucking disgusting. That's why I'm
Right.
banning it.
Exactly.
The if he's protecting the kids though, wasn't the kid that stabbed aren't those kids the two kids stabbing the other kid?
What are you talking about?
A kid literally got stabbed, and the guy who stabbed the child is raising money on GiveSendGo. I thought his principle was we're protecting children.
Oh,
I mean, I'm assuming being
it was one. Well, it
murdered
wasn't
is
two.
worse
It was one kid stabbed one kid. There wasn't two kids stabbing one kid.
No, I know. One kid
okay.
stabbed another kid, but
Yes, right.
being murdered by being stabbed to death is worse than being transitioned by someone. I mean, it is being transitioned, but in a horrible way, right?
Yes,
From living
yes.
to dead.
Yes, right.
Why
right.
is he allowing that person to raise money?
Well, I think Pierce actually asked him that question.
Okay, good.
He doesn't have a good answer. Because I would say that the Steelman answer to that question is, well, that kid is, or maybe he says, I don't remember. The answer to that question would be, well, the kid is claiming self-defense, and everyone in America has a right to due process and a court trial, and there could be information about this that we don't know, yada yada yada.
Did they dump Kyle Rittenhouse's? Was it GiveSendGo that dumped him, or GoFundMe?
It was GoFundMe.
Right. Okay.
did
And
that.
GiveSendGo did jump in there and probably gave him a chance. So, all right.
The N-word.
No, give GoFundMe. It says, according to AI, it says they dumped Kyle Rittenhouse, but then they allowed it back on. So.
Oh, they did. Okay.
I don't know.
Sad he never got any of that money. His lawyers ate it up and stole it from him.
Right.
So.
What about that?
Where does the protection for that child come in?
Well, that's their parents' responsibility. That's like if my child, and I have several children, if my child was called something bad, I would take my child aside and I would tell them.
You just said that one of the
caveats.
caveats. You just said one of the caveats for GiveSendGo is the protection of children. You talked about the transitioning process. You talked about abortion, which is obviously your Christian perspective on that. And I'm simply saying, why doesn't it include children being racially abused? Why is that suddenly the parents' responsibility, not yours as a platform?
No, because there are campaigns that exist on
You are going to
GiveSendGo.
make him. Well, look, let me just spell it out to you.
Pierce's brain has fallen out here. Can you imagine telling your kid to lose their mind over a racial slur? You think that would be good for your child? Something to teach your child? Yeah, if someone calls you a racial slur, you should literally fucking lose your mind. Come on.
The way things are going, you're going to make a millionaire out of a woman who racially abused a child. And if your caveats are for
that's
protection,
incorrect.
Well, hang on. Well, you are.
No, I'm not, because one.
Okay, to further talk about, just to get the facts straight on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, okay, GoFundMe only allowed Kyle, looking at the article here, they only allowed Kyle Rittenhouse to fundraise after he was acquitted. So it's a total like bullshit thing. They're like, oh, they kick him off when he's accused of the crime, and then afterwards they're like, oh, well, you were acquitted, so now you can fundraise. Like
That's what I
here.
thought happened. I thought they kicked him off and he got a GiveSendGo. He moved over to GiveSendGo because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They're fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Go
that is, yeah,
no one uses them now because of that shit.
That is exactly what happened. Yeah, you're correct. He got a GiveSendGo. And he got like $250,000.
Yeah, good. GoFundMe can go fuck themselves. It can be go fuck yourself now. And they can go the way of MySpace, and GiveSendGo can be the next Facebook.
So yeah, because didn't he did raise, wasn't that the whole thing? He did end up raising somewhere like $1 million, but then it like went to his first lawyer, and then there was all these questions about his first lawyer like blowing the money or something.
Yeah, they stole all the money from him.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the name of the attorney is. He has a woman's name, but it's a guy.
It was someone.
I can't remember his name.
It was like a famous attorney guy.
Yeah. I think he defended Trump in the January 6th stuff or something like that.
We're a platform. We don't make donations to these campaigns. These are individuals that are making donations.
This person will become a millionaire because of your platform.
No, this.
Give it a rest, Piers. Go fuck yourself.
It's not because of our platform. They could send checks, and they could send money a million different ways to individuals.
But they're using your platform.
Lynn, there you go.
It was Lynn. You're right. Is that funny? You're like, it's a woman's name. You remember that part of it?
What kind of guy is named Lynn Wood?
It was Lynn Wood. Thank you.
Yeah. Lynn Wood.
Avenues,
and you've already said to me you carve out things because you want to protect children. I'm just curious, why is racially abusing a child not one of your carve outs?
It's not racial abuse of a child. That's not what happened, Piers. You're the dumbest person on the planet now. I don't know what happened to you. You used to be relatively smart. Turn your brain on.
Yeah.
Well, what the campaign is fundraising for. So we have to make a distinction between what happens on GiveSendGo and then what happens outside of GiveSendGo. Because we can't police everything that happens outside of GiveSendGo. All that we can police is what happens on GiveSendGo. So the two instances that I gave were about campaigns that if they were created on GiveSendGo, that we would, for those scenarios, we would prevent. But things that happen outside of GiveSendGo, we can't police around. So does someone have the right to raise funds for their security, for their protection, because they've been doxxed, because of a snapshot moment, because everyone has a camera in their pocket? And today, we can see the outworking of this. 3 years ago in New York City, in the middle of the city, there was an altercation between a woman and a black man over bird watching and dogs. And her name was Amy Cooper. And to this day, 3 years later, she hasn't been able to find a job. Because she made a bad mistake, saying the wrong thing in a particular moment
she
where
racially abused him. She racially abused him. If you racially abuse people, you are made accountable for your actions.
So for the rest of your life, you're shut off from society.
If you call black people the N-word and racially abuse them, unfortunately, yes, it has consequences, probably for your professional life, for the rest of your professional life.
We understand.
Ooh.
I'm ready to just Piers Morgan. I'm ready to throw him in the wood chipper, man.
No, listen.
He's completely useless now.
This is about forgiveness. Okay.
Is it?
We're all in favor of forgiveness.
I agree.
Take. It's a terrible fucking take. Okay.
I agree. The problem here is Piers says you shouldn't have any forgiveness for someone who had a heated moment and is maybe not criminally racist. They just use a racial slur. He's like, no forgiveness, zero forgiveness. So why should I have any forgiveness for him?
Well,
this should be career ending for him.
Right.
He should be basically go bye-bye.
I agree with everything you said.
Cancel Piers Morgan, hashtag. Right.
I would be curious. Now, I don't know if this would have affected Pierce's judgment on this whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I would be curious.
If he actually had a brain?
If the Shiloh lady if she actually made that argument, said that she was just heated in the moment, and didn't mean it or whatever, shouldn't have said it, if he would have a different opinion on the situation.
Put it all together, okay?
Well, as I said, she said on her GoFundMe, she's not saying that. She's saying the opposite.
What is
That's
she
part
saying?
of why I told you she's all like, "Oh, I called someone." I forget the exact phrasing. She's like, "I called someone who's acting like it" or something. She's basically saying that they deserve to be called the N-word. That's what she's saying on her GiveSendGo, and that's part of why the Groypers are so like happy about it, because she's not backing down. She's doubling down on the whole thing.
Right.
So
she's doing the George Carlin argument, right?
Right, but I mean, obviously, again, even with her saying that, I don't think that she doesn't deserve to have her life destroyed because of that.
Right.
So I don't agree with Piers anyway, but I am curious as to whether that affects his judgment here.
That there are consequences. I understand there's consequences. What I'm saying is what you're advocating for, it seems, is that for the rest of Shiloh's life, she should be pushed into the recesses of society, and that she should not have a voice, that she should be canceled and silenced. This is what drives people to suicide. And it's this cancel culture mantra that thinks that the best way forward as a society is to cancel them rather than try to bring some redemption into the situation. And for GiveSendGo, our purpose and our hope is not that we agree with every single campaign. It's why we started a prayer team at GiveSendGo. We actually call every campaign owner and we pray with them, and we actually talk them back from the ideological edges that they find themselves in by saying, you know what, there's a God that loves you. You don't need to get into this tribe.
Oh, word, Sitch. I had no idea. I'm so glad you're playing this part of the interview.
Yep.
You put a GiveSendGo. This guy's going to call and want to pray with me on the phone.
I don't know. See, and I wish Piers wasn't so triggered here, because the question you should have asked is, well, did you call Shiloh Hendricks and pray with her on the phone?
Yes.
That's like the obvious follow-up question. He doesn't ask it.
Yes. They're going to call and pray with you.
Yes.
I mean, I would just, I would cringe out of my chair. What? You're going to pray with me?
He's a kind soul. He's a true believer. Okay. He's going to call you up. He's going to pray with you.
I would probably just see what he's got. I'd be like, okay, lead us in prayer. Lead us in prayer. What do you got for me, Anthony? What's going on?
He's done it a bunch. Okay. He's got it all memorized. He knows what prayer he's going to give.
I mean, look, I'm
May
intrigued.
You use this $1 million to better your life and to not call any more children the N-word.
I'm intrigued. I got to admit, I'm intrigued.
Amen.
Bible space. You need to focus on rebuilding that relationship with him, because that's the fabric for a principled and moral nation.
Here's the flaw with Shiloh. Here's the flaw with Shiloh Hendricks. She, in her message left on the donation site, it goes on, sentence after sentence, playing the victim. She never once mentions that she repeatedly used the N-word. It doesn't exist in her description of the victimhood statement she puts out there. So it's incredibly disingenuous, because people who read that will not realise, if they don't know the story, that she racially abused a child and then an adult in a most horrific manner. And I'm curious for you as a company.
Okay, who's giving money to the Shiloh lady? And they're like, I don't know. I just saw this random lady. She needs help for her family, and I'm just giving her money. Like, who doesn't know?
No, they know the situation. They know the score.
Yeah, that's a bad argument.
She's being canceled for using the N-word. That's what people are looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You take, I believe, tips and donations from each of the donations that come in. Is that how the system works?
The system works on voluntary donations.
Okay.
So the only thing that we receive
just
as revenue from
the $600,000 plus that have now been raised for her, how much have you guys made, GiveSendGo, from that money? Presumably you know, right?
I actually don't know. I haven't kept track of what the donations to that campaign in particular to GiveSendGo are.
Do you feel comfortable?
They do the tip saying? Oh, that's so shady. That's so fucking shady. Most people think the tips are actually going to the campaign. So
you feel comfortable making money?
Do they only make money from I guess the question is, do they only make money from the tips, or do they take like a 5 or 10% cut and then also
sure they take a platform fee and then do tips in addition to that?
Because that would be the question.
Yeah. It's horrifying. Because as a consumer, you're thinking, oh, the tip is, is going to the person without the platform fee. But you're like, nah. Piers is advocating that this woman gets canceled.
Yes.
He literally is.
I know. It's pretty bad.
What a piece of shit. What
Yeah.
a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was in favor of cancel culture like this.
It's pretty surprising.
Gross.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a show called Uncensored. You're like, uncensored, but let's censor this woman.
That's
Oh
a
my
good
God,
point.
she got angry and used a racial slur. Holy,
point.
throw her in the fires of Mount Doom.
Right.
Money out of that?
What I feel comfortable doing is last week flying out to Detroit, Michigan, and stepping into somebody's brokenness who had a campaign on GiveSendGo because their car was stolen and another car was in an accident and they found out that their 3-year-old had cancer.
Well, that's
and
a different
stepped in and
story.
bought them a
That's
new
a different
car.
story completely.
And it's a
I'm
completely
asking you-
different
I'm
story, but
asking
it's
you
a
very
reality of what
specifically-
we use the funds from GiveSendGo
look,
for.
the bottom line is you're making, I don't know, tens of thousands, maybe more, out of a particular part of your site that has been set up by a racist who was proudly racist on camera repeatedly. And you say you want to protect children, but the reason that she is so infamous is she originally, in that exchange, racially abused a child. And you might laugh and smirk
you know what?
and smile,
None of
but
us.
I don't find any of that funny.
You keep jumping. Yeah, I don't think it's funny either. You've put me in a position to try to defend Shiloh, which I have no defense for Shiloh. I don't defend calling a child something like that. What is very evident is that, one, we don't have video of her doing any of those things outside of the post video. So
where she literally
we do
uses
have to
the
take a-
N-word repeatedly, and she doesn't deny using it against the child. In fact, she makes it clear she did do it because he was behaving like one, she said. So I don't know why you're being so mealy-mouthed
understand.
about it.
So-
the bottom line is she's obviously a nasty racist. She's proud of being a racist. She admitted being a racist, and we heard her being a racist. There is no doubt about what happened. What you're trying to do is cast a little bit of doubt, if you don't mind me saying, because it helps your corporate position, which is you're making a ton of money out of a racist who is going to be a millionaire out of being a racist because of your platform.
If you think allowing this campaign...
I'm going to start a GiveSendGo because Piers Morgan is being completely racist against me right now.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna send,
want some of this action.
You were going to start a GiveSendGo to send Piers Morgan back to England.
That would be good. I'll do that too. Well, how do I get the money though? I don't get to keep the money in that situation. Morgan is fucking. This is crazy.
It is pretty surprising that he's so. Listen, I'm very against racism as much as the next guy, but it is interesting that he's so virulent on this aspect of not allowing a person to have a GiveSendGo, to try to cancel them, and also
You censor them. Yes.
And censor them. Yeah.
Yeah. You run a show called Uncensored, dipshit.
Mm-hmm.
But not this. Oh my God.
Right.
She got angry.
Pain helps our corporate position. Come on, Piers.
You know what would help you
you
corporately? If you were genuinely true to your mission statement as a Christian site, that you want to protect children, and you were big on that at the start of this interview, I want to protect the kids, then you would remove her site immediately once you had established in your own brain that she'd racially abused a 5-year-old, which, by the way, she admits to doing, right? So
look, if YouTube wants to deplatform Piers, I'm not going to shed a tear for it. Fucking ban his whole
I am. What are you talking about?
channel.
It's great content. Okay, Piers gets great content.
Well, I'm just saying the hypocrisy is off the fucking charts here. Oh my God, he tried to get someone in this video to literally say the N-word on YouTube.
That's true.
What a piece of fucking shit. What
That
a
is
piece
true.
of shit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this woman, she's causing so much racism in our environment. Here, let me do a video where I try to get some white nationalist to say the N-word on my show and make a fucking $5,000 off a viral video. What a
That's a good
fucking
point.
piece of shit. What
That's
a
a great
piece of
point.
shit. Why doesn't it apply to him?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we canceling him? You're the one getting rich off of this shit, Piers. Oh God, I'm so angry. I just look though. It's so
I get it.
hypocritical.
It
is so hypocritical. Here he is on his moral high horse when he's guilty of doing the exact same thing in the same video.
Mm-hmm.
Make it stop, Sitch. This
I mean,
is so
listen,
unfair.
he never got over his, his time period of being an editor for hacky British tabloids.
Yeah. Oh, I get. Look. Are you saying he can't help himself?
I'm saying that's just,
he could at least show an ounce of humility and not be advocating basically to cancel this woman, right? Why is he doing that?
I can tell you why. I think he's a little grumpy because he hasn't had good sleep. Do you need good sleep? Well, then I got a deal for you. Piers Morgan is selling you a mattress. Okay, that'll give you great sleep.
I'm not sure I could look at Piers Morgan the same. I thought he was getting his shit together, but he's back. How is this not woke? This is fucking woke as fuck. He's on this show complaining about wokeness night and day. And here he is taking woke up to 11.
Yes. I was very surprised to see him not only be in this position but to be so like vehemently. That's why I'm saying, to me, and does this change your opinion about the grifting thing? Because I see this. It doesn't seem like a grift. It seems like he just really, really feels this way.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he is just virtue signaling. He doesn't have any feelings about any of this stuff.
I don't think so. Because he's been like, if it's going to be cynical, obviously he's been doing a lot of more anti-woke, more pivoting to the right stuff. It wouldn't really make sense for him to virtue signal to the left all of a sudden with this stuff. So I think that's why I'm saying, to me, I feel it's legitimate. I mean, I disagree with it, but it feels legitimate, like his actual feeling.
Crazy.
It's, the Brits, they just don't appreciate free speech the way us Americans do.
They don't. They hate it.
Yeah.
They're authoritarians. They couldn't even get rid of their king.
Well, the Brits, their culture is a lot more centered around like politeness. And so it's like this massive moral transgression, maybe, to like be not polite to somebody. Or in America, for us, it's like our big moral transgression is, infringing on our freedoms.
Yeah, you have every right to be impolite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're about freedom.
Right.
Right?
So
that's why we like Braveheart.
There you go. So that's our clash of the cultures here. Our two white cultures slamming together.
It is, yeah. That's a good point.
You could just do that like that.
You could just cancel this woman, end her life like that. And he's so flippant about it. And he's wealthy. That woman doesn't seem wealthy to me. Seems like she needs the money. This guy's a piece of shit, man.
Yeah, no, we could do a lot of things, but in the country that we live in, there are certain fabric elements that make this America what it is, and they need to be defended. So
is free speech one of them?
Yeah, let me translate that for you. We're not a bunch of cucks, Piers.
Have upset feelings.
Free speech?
Free speech, freedom of expression.
Really? And yet, how odd? Because, Mr. Wells, unless I'm mistaken, you have now removed the ability to comment and removed all the comments on this particular donation site, haven't you? Where's the free speech rights of those people who commented? Or are you just a hypocrite?
No.
Oh my God! And then he has a nerve.
He's going for blood. He's out for blood here.
The biggest fucking hypocrite in the world, and now he's going to accuse him of hypocrisy.
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
What is the difference between not letting a bunch of anonymous racists on the internet can't comment on her campaign and taking all of her money away from her? What is the difference there, Piers? What do you think the difference is?
Well, you're completely correct. Like, him trying to get that lady to say the N-word at the end completely takes away any, high road position that Piers could be trying to stand on right here. Because well, what are you doing then? If saying the N-word is just such this this despicable thing that someone's life should be destroyed for, why are you literally trying to get this one? Now, I mean, maybe you say, well, I'm not trying to tell him to call someone the N-word, but still, I mean, it's not a good look. It comes out as completely hypocritical.
All of his moral piety evaporates after you know that, right? He wants to get the woman on his show, canceled. He's like, maybe I can get another one canceled here. I'll get her to say the N-word on my show.
Right.
Horrible behavior.
Recognize what free speech is. Free speech is a prohibition against the government enacting laws to prohibit your speech.
You literally just made a speech talking about freedom of expression and free speech, but you have removed all the comments from here. Why are you suppressing and censoring people's right to free speech to comment on these sites?
We have, as a private business, the right to operate our business the way that we
have the
want
right to suppress free speech. I don't dispute it. I'm just curious why you pretend to be this great defender of free speech when you're literally doing the opposite.
No.
This is why you shouldn't make the free speech argument. You should just...
Yeah, well, it's... And also, with not letting people do abortion stuff and trans stuff. So I'm saying it's like, I don't know what the principle is, or if there's a principle with quote, exceptions, right? So
right,
yeah. But I mean, there is.
I don't. The argument I would make is that you shouldn't cancel people over one indiscretion. So
yes, that is the argument I would make, and I would say that with, there's a difference between someone who's trying to raise money because they're being attacked versus a bunch of people saying, I want to plaster the N-word or racial slurs or talk about killing, white people or whatever in a comment section. It seems like it's a very different situation.
People should be held accountable. But one action is not, doesn't make you
What we saw very clearly in this situation was a campaign for Carmelo Anthony, and on the back of it, a campaign for Shiloh, and they were competing off of each other. And they were in a cycle of vitriolic tornado of sorts. And we said, we need to put some calming effect on this by removing the back and forth element that's going on in this particular situation. It wouldn't necessarily...
I'm alive. I survived.
Have happened if these campaigns were completely independent, months, years apart from each other.
But as a Christian, because I'm told that
I'm glad I've seen this though, because not only does it I have a different perspective of Piers now, but I also have a different perspective of the GiveSendGo because, a lot of people were pushing this narrative about GiveSendGo that it was woke, and I fell into the trap of believing it based on the fact of how they weren't really moderating the comments in the murder self-defense GiveSendGo, and they only did it because of the Shiloh Hendricks thing. But listen to this guy speak, I don't think that's what was going on. I mean, this guy's obviously not woke, so it just seems like there was just a completely different thought process about what speech was allowed and what was going on here.
They'll think about it now, definitely.
Yes.
GiveSendGo site for Luigi Mangione, who we saw allegedly executing a healthcare boss in cold blood. I don't think there's much allegedly about it, but we'll let the process take its course. He's got nearly £1 million for his defence via your site, and it's sort of odd, isn't it? Is it not an inconsistency in your Christian position on this? That on the one hand,
it shows your lack of understanding what Christian faith actually stands for.
Let me ask you the question. On the one hand, if you want anything pro-abortion on your site, that's a no-no because you're all pro-life. And yet, on the other hand, you're helping a bunch of alleged murderers raise millions. Do you not see an inconsistency with your Christian hat on?
Well, it just actually goes to the shallow misconception of Christianity that you have. And I would implore you, Piers, to go after reading the Bible for what it says. The number one critique of Jesus by the religious
leaders is ringing quite loud in my head.
The number one critique of Jesus by the religious leaders of the day was that he hung around with the prostitutes, the drunkards, and the sinners. He was the guy that went to the lowliest of low places, and he actually shared hope in the midst of the worst places. We find ourselves in a very similar situation, and our goal at GiveSendGo is to share hope to people in the midst, and part of that is navigating how we do it. We have a prayer team that calls people and prays with them, actually shows them that they're valuable. We have an initiative.
I want to hear the audio. I think it should be available if you donate. Okay, it should be a new feature. If you donate to the campaign, you get to hear the audio
the
call.
Prayer audio.
Where the CEO of GiveSendGo calls the subject of the donation and they do the prayer session. I want to hear both the Shiloh Hendricks prayer session. I also want to hear the Luigi Mangione prayer session.
Oh my God. No.
I want to hear Luigi Mangione have to sit through a 20-minute Christian prayer session with the GiveSendGo CEO.
Yeah, that's got to be strange, huh?
That's content gold right there.
This interview is tipping into farce now. This is just comical.
Yes. Well, yeah, the idea that, you know, people who, I mean, obviously the Luigi situation is a little different because, like, it's not like everyone knows he did it. It's not really the question. But with the other with other things, it's like, I mean, even with Luigi, even though everyone knows he did it, everyone has an entitled to a defense in court in their day in court, and if they want to raise money to defend themselves, I mean, you know, so be it. That's the legal system that we exist under. Everyone gets that chance.
Yeah.
Mentioning earlier.
All right, but the bottom line, Mr. Wells, I appreciate you coming on, but the bottom line is the reality of the situation is that if you racially abuse a kid, you can become a millionaire on your site and you won't stop it happening. And if you kill somebody or allegedly kill somebody, you won't stop that happening either. But with your Christian hat on, if somebody wants to put anything up that's pro-abortion, whoa, not having that, gov. And if you want to put a comment under one of these more contentious sites, your free speech rule immediately collapses.
Listen, I'm sorry, Piers, if you can't recognize that children don't have a voice and they should be protected.
What about the voice of this? What about the voice of this little 5-year-old black kid? Where was his right not to be racially abused?
He doesn't have a campaign on GiveSendGo. I would love to see a campaign for him on GiveSendGo.
Okay.
He doesn't have a campaign on GiveSendGo.
All right.
But to the deeper question of the other campaigns, if you think undermining the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law is a good position to take, well, so be it. That's why we find ourselves in the mess as a society that we have found ourselves in, is because people continue to undermine the principles that our country was founded upon for the sake of some type of social outrage, which apparently is what seems like you're parroting towards us.
Okay, let's just assume that the viewers can make their own mind.
So it was the family through the Rochester branch of the NAACP has set up a GoFundMe for the kid that was called the N-word.
Wow.
The supposed 5-year-old.
Just what we need.
Yes. Done through the NAACP.
This is the problem of the entire situation, is that it does seem like people are giving money as reward for the actual crime.
That is what's happening.
Not for the defense, not for the defense of the crime. And the comments on the kid who stabbed the other kid kind of made that obvious.
Yes.
So it would be, I'm sure there are laws on the books that you can't pay someone for committing a crime, right? Even in the aftermath.
You're not, but you're not. I mean, this is the one thing where I will say, I mean, even though I disagree with Pierce's, like, that it should be canceled, I understand the idea, and it's exactly what you're saying, which is people are donating to Luigi not because they have some principle of like, oh, he has a right to defend himself. They're donating to Luigi because they're glad that he did what he did.
Yeah.
Right?
Same with the black kid that stabbed the white kid.
Exactly. Same thing with that kid. That, you know, well,
not everyone.
I would hope not everyone, but a lot of the people, are donating to him because, you know, they fucking massive racist, and they're like,
people are donating to this woman because she called a black kid the N-word.
Exactly. Right. That's why they're donating. They could really give a shit about, like, the principles of cancel culture or anything like that. 100%. Right. And so, it is shitty that that's sort of happening. That's the situation. But I think you can address that and still say, like, okay, but we still have free speech and people can still fundraise for horrible reasons.
How? Because the incentive is the problem. How do you, man, this is a tough problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how. I mean, it's such a horrible thing. Obviously, if people are giving to money people for committing crimes.
There's this weird thing I just noticed. On the GiveSendGo, I'm sorry, on the GoFundMe. Okay, on the GoFundMe for that kid, for the 5-year-old, supposedly, there's like a whole section of it that's literally in Somalian.
It's a fraud. It's a total fraud.
That's a little strange. That's very strange to me. Okay.
I knew it was a fraud. I knew it was a fraud.
I know that like wasn't the weird guy who's like probably the pedo who was taking the video. He was Somalian, but I thought he was just like a random guy. I didn't know he had some association with the family.
What if he was creating the campaign as he was uploading the video to go viral?
Ooh, okay.
Shit like that has totally happened on the internet.
Right.
There was that homeless guy. That story about the couple that the homeless guy helped him out with gas money or something like that.
Yes, that was totally fake.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
That was completely fake.
Though it is weird because so it says the NAACP has like created this. Now they're claiming they're not going to take any money from it. But they created the campaign, but it's been paused for at least 4 days. So I don't know what happened.
They did the prayer meeting and found out he was a fraudster. That's probably why they do the prayer meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The prayer people are going to call up and sniff out if they're for real.
Though the same branch of the NAACP they're the ones that were calling for charges to be filed against, the lady. So I don't believe there is any charges, but they're the ones calling for it.
Let's watch the ending and see how it ends.
Yes.
I want to see the breakdown. I want to see Mark Lamont Hill go nuclear. So can I jump to the end or?
No, let's watch the rest of it.
Okay.
Lines up about who's parroting what here, but I appreciate you coming on, Mr. Wells. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Piers.
Okay, let's go back to the panel there. I mean, Ricky, it seemed to me a lot of inconsistencies in Mr. Wells's position, not least the donning of the Christian hat when it suits them, but then removing it when it doesn't.
The irony, a moment of silence for the irony here. Inconsistencies. Piers Morgan pointing out inconsistencies when he has a billion of them in this video.
I think it's definitely tough to make the call here and there and where to censor. I err on the side of not censoring as much as possible, but I agree with you that the selectivity of having issues with abortion but not with these campaigns is certainly a problem. But I also want to go back to our point before too and make the point that I hate this argument that because some people were tribal, we should be tribal too. And shouldn't we want to live in a society where we say tribalism is bad in general and negative in general, and so therefore we should be erring towards individualism and not fighting tribalism with more tribalism? I think that's a net negative.
I agree. Myron?
I mean, based on free will pill right there, so.
Yeah.
Also, like, she's funny. She's like, well, I don't agree with you, Piers, but she said it in a nicer way. She's like, you should not censor people. Based American.
Your last words on this?
Okay. Because I never got to respond to Myron's other...
The thing with tribalism, it's a natural human instinct. Like, we are literally designed to want to be in communities and want to be a part of a set of community because it ensures our survival. It's been that way since the beginning of time. So the thing is that people are typically going to align with people that share similar features, and that's why we have the tribalism we have going on right now. So the problem is, it's not going to go.
I mean, he's the one that literally made the argument that he doesn't want to be associated with people of the same skin color. So it's kind of undermining his own position, but okay.
Yeah.
Anywhere. I think the problem is that we've had this penting up for literally decades, and this has been a response to it. You have people that are coming out and supporting someone who you guys might deem as a terrible racist, but I think it's also very important to understand how we got here, because if we're going to look at the smaller problem, we can't look at the bigger problem, and it's what I said before, unchecked systemic.
All right, Mark Lamont Hill, your last words on this.
I do agree that we do need to look at how we got to where we got, and we have to look at where we're going and whether what people are advocating for is going to lead us down a better pathway or a worse pathway.
Right. Yeah.
This repeated use of the word, I think, first of all, I want to just register that as offensive, particularly as someone who doesn't identify as a member of that community and who is not, right? I think that's incredibly
I'm the definition of African-American. I'm the definition of African-American.
And troublesome. And to as a Sudanese American or an outsider, who's using African-American in a very technical term, the same way that Elon Musk is an African-American, I think it is a bit disingenuous. But the bigger issue here, I think, is that...
He just said, you're not black, bro.
It's kind of like, I understand it is true. There's like a difference between someone who's, black, American ancestry, right? The family's been here versus someone who's like a first generation black or second generation black from Africa or some other country. I guess there's a difference, but it seems a little disingenuous to be like, well, Myron is like the same level of black as Elon Musk. That doesn't seem a little accurate to me. It seems a little off, but something about that doesn't strike correct with me.
Yeah. Obviously, he would argue that he's had the black experience because of his skin color, right? He presents as black.
Right. Myron is black, like visually black. So
yeah, that would be the argument he would make.
Elon Musk is not black.
I don't. Mark Lamont Hill would obviously make the argument that someone light skinned was white passing, right? But it doesn't go the other way. Obviously, he wants to see the 23andMe before he accepts
right
Myron's dark skin. So,
well, and also, I mean, it does and this is why Mark Lamont Hill, he's such a terrible advocate for all this stuff. I mean, he's undermining his well, I guess he's not, because he's a racial nationalist, right? He's fine with like casting, saying like, well, just because you're an immigrant or your family, because I'm pretty sure mine was born in America, is because your parents were immigrants here, like you're therefore, you're different, right? You're going to get shunted into a different racial category because of that.
Yeah, Mark Lamont Hill is also making Myron's argument about tribalism.
Yes.
He's saying, look, I'm just as tribal. I'm going to kick you out of the fucking tribe right now.
Right. Though, and it's interesting because for Mark Lamont Hill, that's based on his opinions, right? If Myron had the correct, opinions according to Mark Lamont Hill, I'm sure he would consider him, a black brother.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
This idea of equating of one side to the other side often loses track of this issue of power. To use his example, when black people stand up and say, hey, let's build our own stuff. Hey, let's have a black power movement. That is not the same as a white power. I'll let you speak uninterrupted. Let me finish, please, my Sudanese brother. So when a black person says, hey, let's preserve our culture, I have no problem with Italians or Irish people or anyone else saying let's preserve our culture. But when we don't talk about ethnicity, but actual race, and when white people say let's preserve whiteness, it's an exclusionary practice. It's about preserving laws and practices and tactics that do harm to other people. A black power movement was about opening stores and building businesses. A white power movement was a white power. That's the giga. A white power movement was about something very, 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 very different. A white power movement included lynchings and included Ku Klux Klan, etc. So let's not pretend that these are opposite sides of the same coin. When white people say, let's save our country, and even using the language of our country, when black people built this thing, when you say that, you're talking about forcing people out of the country. You're talking about laws that discriminate. You're talking about doing harm to people. Let's not pretend these are the same thing, just like these GoFundMe campaigns are not the same thing. I'm okay if everybody gets out of the GoFundMe industrial complex. I'd love that. But let's not pretend that supporting someone for a fair trial is the same thing as supporting a grown white woman berating and calling the N-word to a 5-year-old autistic black child. And the fact that everyone in here...
Well,
this is such bullshit.
Well, going back, it's annoying because like half of what he said is true in terms of, when he started by saying, if people want to preserve their ethnic heritage, right? They're Italian, they're German, they're French, they're whatever, right? That's very different than saying, well, we're going to group all white people together and we're going to call it like the white race in America and we're going to protect, the whites. And obviously that's a very different thing that has a very different connotation and very different history in America. That's all 100% true. But then the problem is he immediately stumbles, because I want to agree with him on there, but then he immediately stumbles and is like, well, black people are allowed to do that. Black people are allowed to do this thing where they're not advocating on the basis of some specific, African culture, African ethnicity, of being Sudanese or Kenyan or whatever, but they're all going to kind of mesh together as a black identity and a black nationalist identity, even to some extreme, and advocate for that. And that's fine, just because there isn't a history in America where that's led us down some bad pathway of, according to Mark Lamont Hill, hasn't led us down a bad pathway of some sort of like crazy laws being implemented and stuff like that. And that's where he immediately loses the argument.
I just think it's interesting because he's obviously going back to the whites lynched black people thing and perpetuating that meme. We literally have a situation where people are giving money to a black guy because he killed a white guy.
Right.
So
seems a little different time period. Yes.
Well, they're doing it because of the meme that he is promoting. They're doing it because they feel it's justified because whites in the past lynched black people.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel it's justified now. This is like a revenge fantasy. And it's, as long as you're going to continue to perpetrate that, to put that meme into the social environment, you're going to get this kind of situation coming up again until you can say as a society, okay, all the lynching white people are gone. White people are not lynching anybody anymore, right? That's a thing of the past. The white people today are innocent of that. You're going to continue to get this situation, and it's just going to fuel this kind of racial conflict. Mark Lamont Hill is the one perpetrating this racial conflict. He did it just right here, right fucking here. And it's like invisible to him. He doesn't realize that a bunch of black people are donating to this black kid because they think this is like the lynching of a white person. This is great. This is racial justice. Even though none of these people involved are guilty of that kind of horrible racism. It's disgusting. It's fucking disgusting. And until we take the Mark Lamont Hills of the world and just, stop listening to them, belittle them, take them out of the socio-political sphere, we're going to continue to get this kind of shit. And it's just going to be the pendulum back and forth again and again.
Yeah. Well, that's the irony. Mark Lamont Hill and the white nationalist lady are like, they're doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger meme where their arms are together in the big handshake, like just promoting this, horrible racial identity politics division in this country that just fuels each other's movements to worse and worse places. Yeah.
I hate it. Yeah. And they want to pretend to be holier than thou.
Yeah. I mean, and this was the argument that, Nick Fuentes and all these other people were saying. They're like, a lot of black people would, make these crazy comments about like why it was justified for OJ to do whatever he did for like a racial reason or some other, time when something like that happened. And it's true. There's a lot of fucking psychotic, racist as fuck black people that would say that. And so like, that's just going to breed a bunch of white people who are going to say the same thing.
They want to create negative stereotypes of white people. They want to pretend that white people living today are exactly the same as white people who lived in the Jim Crow South, who arguably were guilty of all kinds of horrible racism.
Yeah.
It's
and then
disgusting.
And then you're gonna have a bunch of groypers do that, and they're gonna be that to justify that stereotype.
Yeah. Fucking gross.
It's gonna keep getting worse and worse. It's so terrible. It's all so tiresome. Tiresome.
Yeah. Let's go to Mars.
It's also obvious too.
Let's go to Mars and hang out. And I blame Piers Morgan for platforming this kind of racism.
Thank you, Piers.
Look, he pats Mark Lamont Hill on the back for it. Oh yeah, you be as racist as you want here. Let me go after the white girl who's just as racist.
Well, it's weird because in different contexts, I've seen Piers Morgan, argue really strongly against Mark Lamont Hill on certain issues. But here, it's it gets lost.
Right.
Be unanimous in condemning that.
I totally agree.
Exactly how they're not the same.
I totally agree. I'm going to go to Lily Gaddis and just ask you one more time. I mean, you've been so unashamedly proud of being a racist today, proud of using the N-word whenever you feel like it. You've had a bit of time to think about this. Is that how you want people to leave this panel debate, with thinking of you as a disgusting racist?
I don't really care what people think about me. As long as you care about what people think about you, you have no power and you lose your country. What I care about is freedom of speech. And if you're not allowed to say the most offensive things in this country, you do not have freedom of speech. I don't care what anybody says. So that's...
I mean, I will say, I don't believe someone who's literally grifting off of social media says, I don't care about what people think about me. It's their entire, how they make money.
She doesn't. She's a representative of people who feel the same way, so that's how she makes the money. I agree with you. I don't think she feels this way. She probably feels. This is why she didn't actually say the N-word. She probably feels bad about it.
crux of this situation. That's what I care about with this situation. It is, we have lived for far too long in a country where you can have your life destroyed, and people say, oh, she doesn't need this money. Her life's destroyed, by the way. She'll never be able to get another job. She's got children to have to support. And I don't want to live in a country where you can say an inappropriate, rude thing, which, by the way, Black people can say things to white people all the time and they never get canceled. There's no backlashing about this. I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly, and you will
well, go
not
on then,
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
M.
not have
Go on,
free
say.
speech.
Go on, say the M word. Go on.
No. Don't invite. No.
No.
I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word, because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here. You and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and to ask her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Piers. I understand what you're trying to do, but we already know she's racist, and I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
I hear you, and I accept that, and we'll leave it there. Thank you all very much.
At least he pointed out his fucking hypocrisy.
It's so, but well, he didn't point it out. But first of all, I mean, it's so ridiculous that Mark Lamont Hill like spurged out. He's like, oh, if she said, he wasn't saying, I want you to call Mark. He didn't say, Mark, I want, like, lady, I want you to turn and call Mark Lamont Hill the N-word. Say that. I can Piers said that. That'd be fucking crazy. Okay, he's just like, oh, why don't you just say it like, you know, randomly? Just say the N-word. Like, for him to spur out and be like, oh, like, she's calling me that, it's such an offense to me. Me just simply hearing a white person utter the word in proximity with like no context is such an offense. It's like, fuck off, really? Like, get over yourself, get over everything.
Yeah, obviously his spurg out is comical, hilarious, all of those things.
Yes.
The point is, we just saw Piers Morgan spurging out in the same exact way as Mark Lamont Hill for the entire interview.
Right.
And then he's going to turn around and not get it.
Well, no, he is going to get it. It is the
well,
whole,
he got
like,
it once Mark Lamont Hill pointed it out. He got it.
No. I don't think he has a different motivation. I think Piers Morgan's motivation is like, he thinks that she's grifting, or he wants to get her in trouble, essentially. So he's like, well, who say it then, right? If you're such a free speech warrior, then say it. Put your money where your mouth is. Like he's not perceiving it from this level of analysis that Mark Lamont Hill is, which I think is completely stupid. But
Piers was arguing that the woman should be deplatformed because she was racially abusing a child, right?
Well, he wants this one to be deplatformed too.
How is her not saying the N-word and racially abusing all of America like the same thing? That he's literally here advocating for it. Just do it. Just do it.
Because he wants her to get in trouble. He wants her to get deplatformed.
So it's not really then about the racial abuse, is it?
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, he's a giant hypocrite. He's a giant. Look, and Mark Lamont Hill is like, oh man, this is like going to destroy my whole entire life. Really? Some crazy grifter on a panel says the N-word next to you and your life is destroyed?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just...
Well, also, like, him spurging out is probably going to be what 95% of the people even see. They're not going to watch this whole interview. They're just going to see him yelling, because that's like
big clip. Of course.
So, yeah. Do you think he's going to show up on Piers Morgan ever again, or is he going to be too mad about the situation?
Oh, he wants to show up and talk about the whites lynching people. He's definitely coming back to Piers Morgan. He's got to say all white people are racist and we're all a bunch of lynchers.
Right.
That's what he wants to say.
The platform is the siren call. The platform is too good.
Yeah, he's got to share his message with the world about how racist white people are.
Of course.
And look, he's got the perfect example here. Piers Morgan begging some grifter to say the N-word. Obviously, example of racism. He's probably been talking about it on his podcast. He has a YouTube channel, but I don't think he gets any traction on his YouTube channel. Every once in a while, I think I'm going to dip in, but then his talks are so fucking boring. Who can take any of it?
What a shit show. This is the biggest shit show Piers Morgan I think I've seen.
Oh, yeah, this is going wild. It's definitely going wild.
Yeah. CS Pappy for $20 says, new rule, if you have a silver play button, drop a dono. You piss splurging brainlets shouldn't be allowing our broke asses and J-Max rich ass to carry the weight. Wow. Well, there you go.
Wow.
I don't know. Look at that. CS
Who
Pappy
said
calling
that?
out some friends of the show. No, listen.
Really?
Listen. No one
Where
has
is
to
that?
donate.
Where was that
okay?
at? No, I like it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
great.
Look at this.
New rule.
Okay.
That's hilarious. No, obviously I'm on Sitch's side. No one should be forced to donate.
Everyone should be forced to donate. Don't you want free will? We got to bring back the free will, baby. El Caliso for $20 for 20 free units of free will says, I don't like it when people report on the N-word mom. They just say, quote, she's getting money for saying the N-word. She was doxxed. You cannot like her, but the threat she's facing is very real. Yeah, that is definitely part of those stories.
Complete, utter bullshit.
Yes. And the Mongolian Leprechaun, thanks so much, Surferman from Santa, for 20 free units of free will. Directed straight to you, says, hey, Sitch and Adam, I have a question for the both of you. If Hassan Piker, iDubbbz, Olay were to come on your channel and debate you guys 3v2 about the Ethan Klein and Hassan Piker conflict drama, would you guys do it? Of course. Are you crazy? We'd take that in a heartbeat. Oh my God.
If who did what? What was the thing?
If Hassan, iDubbbz, and Olay all wanted to do a 3v2 with us on the Ethan Klein stuff, would you do it? Of course we would do it. You're crazy.
Sure.
In a second. When do you have to think about it? Instantly. Listen, Leprechaun Surfman, if you have some way of making that happen, or even getting just one of them, all right?
Do it up.
I'm down.
Send them our way. We want it.
Okay. Japanese name for $5. Here's 5 free units of free will coming straight to you. Says saying the N-word is cringe, but not as cringe as having to say the phrase the N-word is an entirely descriptive context. Sure. Dunny for £2 says donating because Sitch forced me. Thank you, Dunny. That's 2 free units of free will right to your house. Cameraman 502 for $5 says, why are we not talking about how the new Pope is an American from Chicago? Yeah, baby. USA, USA. Ketchup on hot dogs is now anathema. That's true. Did you see that today? They chose a new Pope today. They chose a new Pope today, and he's American. It's the very first American Pope ever.
Is it really? I can't believe there's not a dozen of them.
No. Very first one. I don't know. Now, I literally know nothing about this guy, so I don't know anything about him. Except that he's American, baby.
That's great. Love it.
Oh, you should bring up that meme that
all the popes should be American now.
You should bring up that meme I sent you. That Zero Fucks made.
Oh, okay, I can do that. I saw it. It was funny.
It was pretty funny. Cracker for $5 says, did you all see the trigonometry feminist debate from last week? I'm halfway through, but it's a good listen so far. I did see it. It is a very interesting conversation. Maybe we'll cover it. They're talking to this feminist who's like, she's like simultaneously against, well, she's simultaneously saying she's against cancel culture, but she has like some really wacky classical feminist beliefs. So
it was on trigonometry. Was that it?
Yes.
Constantine asked who's a good center left follow on Twitter, and a bunch of you shouted me and Sitch out. So
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate
I got a bunch of followers off of that. So you probably did the same.
I did. Sketch for $2 says race war to the bottom. That's right. Race to the bottom. Thank you.
Unfortunately.
Stock for 37 months. Thanks so much. Says Jim Send Crow. It's terrible, but funny. Landendorf for $10. Thank you so much for the 10 free units of free will straight to you, Landendorf. Says if there's any lesson to take away from the past decade of wokeness, is that people being racist against your group does not give you license to be racist against theirs. Shiloh Simps lost the plot. Very, very true. Completely true. M8566 for $2 says activate big head cheat mode. Eye lasers. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was mixing it up with the edit. So.
Oh, really? Well, that's impressive. Good for you.
People like the big heads.
Jose Calajero for 22 months. Thank you so much for being 22 months of free will seeker. Says Robin DiAngelo literally called for white people to develop racial consciousness and white fragility. Don't be like Robin DiAngelo. Yeah, she literally asked for this. She created this situation. So
yeah, we can't have that white fragility, right?
Right.
That's funny.
Sketch for $5 says this woman is proof positive that conservative rightoids follow liberal leftoid trends just with a 10-year delay. I mean, I don't want to say it. Oh, great. Dialogue. Oh, look at that. It's dialogue always. The real dialogue.
I noticed
always.
that.
Look at that.
What's
Wow.
up?
It's been a long time. For $5. Says, quote, or says, if, quote, from the river to the sea has a second meaning that we all identify due to history, why do we keep pretending white power doesn't? Who was pretending white? I mean, even that conversation, who was pretending? If someone pretending white power doesn't mean like white nationalism? Is that like the new thing now?
She didn't use the white power. She avoided the white power word. She said white unity. But I thought,
right.
yeah,
Yes,
she was
right. I mean, it's pretty
we all knew
explicit what she
meant.
was talking about. I mean, she immediately says like, you know, I don't want to live near black people. It's like, oh, okay. That's what white unity means, I guess. So, I mean, I haven't seen people trying to rehabilitate white power. I don't think that's going to be very successful. But
well, we do remember all these arguments from obviously 2015, 2016, when everyone was losing their minds over the alt-right and this and that. These arguments are very familiar.
Yes. The Wooster for $5 says Shiloh Hendrix getting $1 million and Ye making the hit of the summer. America is back. It is just sad to me. Like all these people think, or Ye thinks he's going to get his children back. Which, first of all, I don't even know if that's even true. If Ye, I mean, I know that Kim has custody, but there's no fucking way that he's going to have any meaningful relationship with his kids going forward. He just acts more and more unhinged in the situation.
Of course not. It's impossible.
Also, I listened to that song. It wasn't a very good. I mean, I've never been a Kanye fan, but I think it's a very good song. It's very repetitive.
You could play a Kanye song for me, and I wouldn't even know it was a Kanye song. It was funny in the Piers Morgan interview when he was talking about all these people love my music, and I was thinking, I've never listened to any of your fucking music.
Yes, if you didn't see it, it's kind of crazy. Kanye walks off Piers Morgan simply because Piers Morgan said he had 32 million followers on X when he's like, I have 33 million followers on X. Excuse me. You're disrespectful. And he walks off the interview.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Yeah.
It's so narcissistic. It's totally crazy.
He acts like that's an excuse too. When it's nobody is keeping track of how many followers you have. Nobody's trying to downplay the number of followers you have to disrespect you. The difference between 32 million followers and 33 million followers to a normal human being is inconsequential.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just, and I kind of, obviously, Piers, he's not the best interviewer, as we just watched. He has a very like aggressive Brit way of coming about things, kind of like the tabloid newshound kind of way of talking about things, which can be good in some contexts and bad in some other contexts. Because I kind of wish that interview actually continued forward. Because Piers, the first question he asked Kanye is, he says, you're saying all this crazy shit on Twitter, like, how do you feel? And Kanye's response is, he's in some, I don't know, he has some massive like mansion in Barcelona or something, somewhere in Europe. And it's got like this like beautiful like beach view. And he's like, look where I am. Look at this, amazing view, like, fuck you. I'm doing great. And the follow-up question should have been, if Piers was thoughtful, the follow-up question should be, well, you just dropped the song. And then the song, the Heil Hitler song, and the chorus, the lyrics of the song, the verse of the song is that you can't see your kids. And that sounds like you're coming from a place of a lot of like pain and anguish about not being able to see your kids again. And I would presume that money and having a nice view isn't going to fill that hole.
This is the way that I would have asked it. I would have said, hey, how do your kids like that view?
Well, that's then he's going to leave. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. You got to frame it away, but he's going to leave in a second if you do that. So.
It's a beautiful view. What do your kids think of it?
Yes. Wouldn't it be nice to share it with your kids one day? I'm not sure, spouting off Heil Hitler is going to accomplish that.
I guess that would have been worse than getting his follower count wrong.
It might have been a little worse.
You're probably right. He probably would have
been.
Your direction would have been better. He would have.
Well, even my way would probably be too aggressive. I'm just like, that would be the topic I'd want someone to go down
You
that
want to
road.
drill in on, yeah.
To drill in on, you're basically just self-destructing, and literally every single person on Earth, but you and your sycophants, can see that you're self-destructing. So.
Everybody, his response with The View was just so stupid. What the fuck? Look, I've been on vacation. I've had a dream view before. Who gives a fuck? It didn't. There's more to life than a good view. So obviously.
Well, it's part of the contradiction of Kanye is that he tries to simultaneously say like, oh, I'm like this deep person in my music. But then if you interact with him,
who cares? It's all money.
Right. But then when you interact with him, it's just kind of like classic gangsta, like, oh, I'm not affected by anything. It's like, okay, well, I mean, you can't have it both ways.
I got the money. I marched my woman around the street butt naked.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, you seem deranged. It doesn't seem like you're in a good place. It seems like we're going to find you jumping off a tall building soon. So
right.
You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah. Having to, make a song where you're just talking about how sad you are because you can't see your kids, so that you're going to shout Heil Hitler in response is not what a happy person does, right?
I'm concerned about that view. How high up are you right now?
Yeah. So Zero Fox made this meme here. We've got Piers Morgan as iDubbbz and I don't even know her name, the racist lady as Tana Mongo. He's trying to get her to say the N-word. So brilliantly done. Thank you, Zero Fox.
Very good. That's a piece of meme culture there.
Right. And Asif Artsy did a comic. Look at this.
Look at this. He's back again.
Back. Sitch's face reveal goes horribly right. Okay. So here I am. Hey now, how you doing? Are you ready? Are you prepared? This is the day, the moment, the very special event you've all been waiting for. The face reveal. Here we go. And then you see in the comic, I pull off my face mask to reveal another Sitch mask. Whoa, what do you say? Am I handsome? Am I gorgeous? Am I every bit as special as you expected? And then Adam says, Sitch, what Adam? Is my feed lagging? You look the same. Chat also says you look the same. Yeah, I like that he's got a little chat in the window and you have Sammy G at the top. And Sammy G says, just like in real life, LOL.
Interesting.
There you go. Then I say, psych, gotcha. I had a double mask. See? And then I keep pulling off Sitch mask after Sitch mask until just a bunch of masks everywhere. What's going on?
Still the same. What is going on? What? Arg.
And then you say, hey buddy,
take it easy.
Take it easy. And I say, I'm stuck. Then you say, you absorbed your personality. It happens to many YouTubers.
What?
That is true. And then you say, or you can just read your parts if you want. But
look at me. Since I called myself friended, I'm stuck with a smiling face.
Adam.
Yeah.
Restart the stream. Restart the Matrix. The last 10 minutes never happened. Then it restarts. Hey now.
We don't have a button. I would like to have one of those buttons.
The little Ethan button.
The thing that I'm afraid of if we got one of those buttons is that Sitch would constantly be saying the N-word over and over again. And I'd have to be like hitting the button. Oh my God. Stop, Sitch. Stop.
Listen, I'm not saying the N-word to make Mark Lamont Hill mad. I'm saying it to keep you on your toes. All right.
Right.
Gotta make sure I was paying attention.
Make sure my button skills are perfect.
Yes, exactly. Okay. CS Paffy for $5 says, quote, you are not hot enough to be acting this way. Some crazy weeb lady. True. Magor for 27 months. Thank you so much. Says, I think we need to try to attach the stigma of trashy to racism. Call the elites preaching racism trashy. That's a good one. Call people trashy and degenerate. I do like that. Sketch for $5 says, quote, use code N-word for 13% off your next MyPillow order. For those restless nights when you can't stop thinking about racial slurs, get MyPillow. I like it.
Wow.
Cyberhunk Returns for $5 says, couldn't the same thing be said of Israel's critics? Most aren't arguing the legality of bombing women and children. They're arguing the morality of it. I'm trying to, is that the same argument? Well, wait, I think, no, isn't it the opposite? It's the opposite. Because the criticism against like Myron and Hassan is that you say like, well, how do you feel about something? And they don't tell you how they feel about it morally. They just say, oh, well, they're allowed to do it. With the Israel situation, people aren't really doing that, are they?
People are saying it's bad morally and legally.
Right. People, at least from my understanding, people in the Israel conversation on both sides seem to be talking about it mostly from the moral framework. So I'm not sure that's the equivalent. Lana Dor for $10. Thank you so much. Says, starting to think anti-woke liberals were cucks for letting the anti-woke movement be led by the right, who became just as radical and hypocritical as the left. The millisecond they gained power, they regained power. I mean, no one lets anyone. It's not like these things are like a top down. The anti-woke liberals have like a convergence, a meeting where they say we're going to allow X, Y. These movements just go in directions. They just pick up momentum and energy in certain directions. And when things start picking up energy and movement, a lot of people they'll be more permissive of the big energy movers and shakers on their side because they think it's beneficial for the end of the day. And it was kind of fascinating to hear James Lindsay say that he actually, because James Lindsay right now, he's picking up the mantle of being the anti, the woke right guy. And even he acknowledged that like before he got to this point, from his perception, he saw a lot of behavior he thought on the right that was like leading down the pathway that he was too that he kind of let go because the momentum was going in the direction he didn't want to make waves. And I think that's kind of the unfortunate reality of a lot of these movements on left, on the right, in all directions. This is the way it always goes. The movement becomes the snowball, and it's kind of like, what point are you going to try to jump off or stop it? And can you stop it? Or are you just going to get thrown off the snowball that's rolling down the mountain?
All the factions are in a struggle for power with one another. The far left, the moderate left, the far right, and the moderate right. And everyone is using that dynamic so that their faction can gain the most power. Obviously, the far left wants to overstate the far right so that they can gain political power. And same with the far right overstating the far left.
Yeah. 100%.
It's interesting because you really, you have to kind of know the situation on the ground. And in the current media environment, it's just so hard to know that situation. It's hard to know which of these factions have the numbers. And numbers matter in a democracy. They definitely matter.
We really got to do something about bots in brigading because it creates such a false sense of reality.
It does, yeah, hugely.
Because you're completely correct. And this was part of what I think allowed wokeness to spread out of control anyway, is that you have all these journalists and all these people that would be on social media, on Twitter, back before Elon, bought it. And, there's hyper wokeness everywhere online, and people think, oh, well, I see, I'm online, I see hyper wokeness everywhere, so the country must be woke. And it's like, okay, that's like a tiny fraction of the country that you're listening to, essentially. And now it's, it's the same thing with like the Groypers and the racists. And so no one can really get a good sense of where we are in the country exactly to have like a good assessment of, threats or what.
Yeah. Even the internet makes it easy for outside forces to play with those numbers too. Russia, China, all these bad actors. We gotta fix that shit. We do.
Oh yeah, I know some of those. It's kind of funny. Some of the big like white nationalist accounts have been exposed to being like people that are like
China
Indian or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're like, there's people just literally just doing it for money or whatever. So
that Ian Miles Chong guy just bugs the fucking shit out of me. I don't see why Elon Musk is so up his ass all the time.
Because he's like up Elon's ass. So he
lives in Malaysia. He's not even an American citizen.
Yep.
Just a fucking grifter off the culture war.
100%. See, it's Paffy, but and I guess just to put a bow on it, it's I guess it's poetic. It rhymes. The left was hyper permissive of wokeness and allowed it to take over. I guess we'll find out whether the right is as permissive. I don't think the white nationalist right has the ability to take over the mainstream right the way the wokeness took over the mainstream left. I don't foresee that happening. I see what I'm more worried about is just because like the way I see it right now is the left is fractured. You kind of have the far left and the moderate left going at each other, and they're kind of vying for power. They're trying to vie for like what the future is going to look like of the Democratic Party and the left in America. You know, you're going to have like AOC run, and she's going to try to be kind of the far left in the next election, and maybe you have Shapiro, someone else, try to be the moderate left. So you have this kind of like vying these warring factions going on right now. Where on the right, everything's kind of unified for the most part. Obviously, there's infighting, but things are still unified under Donald Trump. Donald Trump's kind of like holding together this thing. But the second Trump is gone, it's kind of like Pandora's box could like be unleashed, and there's going to be all this infighting, and I have no clue what the Republican Party is going to look like. And I'm not really worried about like the white nationalists or the racists taking over. I don't foresee that happening logistically. What I'm worried about is that they'll become big enough, loud enough, prominent enough that it basically allows the woke left to reassert dominance on, in the mainstream and retake control of everything.
Right.
So I don't know if you see it similarly or different, but
obviously we're kind of in a transition period here. Mm-hmm. So it's tough to tell how bad things could get.
That's true.
Obviously I'm like an eternal optimist, so I like to have the attitude, it'll be fine, it'll all work out.
Maybe it'll all just go away. That'd be very nice.
All this white nationalist stuff is just, yes. I mean, it's just kids wanting to be edgy on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, isn't that what the left was saying about the woke stuff? Holy shit.
It was, and then it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe
it's just kids. They'll grow out of it. Everything will be fine.
Yeah. Maybe I'm being naive about them not being able to take a hold, but I don't think so. I think it could get worse. I think it's going to be bad for the country, but I don't think it's going to be like the woke stuff.
Right.
C.S. Paffy for $2 says, I forgive everyone on this panel. We'll look at that. C.S. Paffy believes in forgiveness.
That's great.
Squeeze Louise for $5 says, every day I become more and more convinced the internet is the great filter.
You know what the great filter is?
I do. It's the filter that filters out intelligent life. Yes.
When you look out into space, the question is, where are all the aliens? There's so much room that obviously some civilizations have to be far more advanced than us. But when we look, we're like, where are they? Why aren't there aliens everywhere?
Yeah, the Fermi paradox. Yeah.
So scientists have postulated that every single society has snuffed themselves out through some event, and they call this event the Great Filter, that no society makes it past.
And it's the internet.
Right. Maybe it is. As soon as they develop the internet technology, the society is doomed.
Mm-hmm.
More likely, they're probably just communicating on some sort of wavelength that we don't communicate on, right? Like gravity waves or something that we don't perceive. And as soon as we tap into that spectrum, it's going to be like, oh, there's all the fucking aliens.
I think there's my problem with the Fermi paradox idea is it doesn't actually make sense, because you know how like people thought like, oh, there's going to be all this overpopulation problems in the world, right? For years, like everyone's going to overpopulate. There's going to be nowhere to live. And now it's like the opposite. It's like, oh my God.
We need population.
Yeah. Like, it's like you get to some level of progress or technological advancement and society like stops producing children. Right. And so the idea that like, well, if there's an intelligent life, they should just exponentially spread out and dominate everything. It's like, okay, or maybe not. Maybe that's not what happens. Maybe they have absolutely no fucking desire to do any of that. Maybe they're like, oh, there's, we're not going to have children. We're not going to spread out. We're going to just, chill on our own, solar system somewhere. So.
Do you think that our culture will give way to a robot culture, or that the robots will take over eventually?
No, I don't think that. I think it's silly whenever I hear Joe Rogan talk about that.
Does he? I don't watch a lot of Joe Rogan, so maybe talks.
He
about
always
this all
says
the
that.
time.
He always says that. Oh, we're gonna give birth. Maybe we're just giving birth to the new species or whatever. I think we're gonna merge with machines and become like some kind of weird cyborg species. Like that will be the future. But I don't think it's gonna just be all robotic.
I think obviously the little green men thing always struck me as incorrect. I thought if aliens are here, they're robots. They have to be robots because robots is how you solve the problem of long space flight. Because a robot, you can just, you control every living aspect of a robot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I wish Subnautica 2 was a better game because it has an interesting concept where like there's this alien species that the human character is interacting with, and they're like they're almost an entirely digital based life form. Like they are a life form with a consciousness, but like their body is like constructed, their brain wave, their brain pattern, they like download onto computers and they like build their bodies the way they want and everything. And I think something like that is probably more in line with our future, is being this kind of like cybernetic hybrid. But
why even have the biological component?
I think because, well, I don't know, maybe we won't. For now, in the next 100 years, next thousands of years, I think most humans still believe that there is some kind of soul or some kind of consciousness that exists somewhere in the biological process that we wouldn't think will be replicated simply through machinery.
Right.
And so that's the answer to the question. Then you get into your kind of ship a thesis question, but that's, that'll be a question for another generation.
Ray Kurzweil has a bunch of books talking about all this stuff. Google gave him a bunch of money to start Singularity University. Do you know about that guy, Ray Kurzweil?
Yeah, of course.
I've read a bunch of his books and they're fascinating. He goes through all the processes of weeding out the biological component, which I think there are ways around. Hey, did you watch any Andor? Andor like literally floofed the goof this week.
No, I thought what do you mean? I thought it was doing good. They did bad?
No, wait. It was great. It was completely fascinating. In the storyline, there's a lot of goof floofing going on.
There's a lot of genociding happening. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they actually did a good job of portraying it. That was one of my criticisms of season one.
Good job portraying genocide. What a bigot.
Well, if it's accurate, they do a good job.
How many Jawas were killed?
They did the 2014 coup plot. I was wondering if they were stealing it from the 2014 coup.
Andor did the 2014 Ukraine-Russia coup? What do you mean?
Plot line, yes.
There was a phone call?
Spoilers. I don't know if you guys... spoilers are coming for Andor if we're...
Was there a Mon Mothma phone call where she got someone to coup someone else?
There is no similarities with the phone call.
Okay.
It's a CIA ignited the protesters situation. That's what takes place.
Interesting.
You should watch it. And they really handled the character Cyril that you liked. Cyril was a character that was the empire man that wanted to make sure that they avenged his coworkers. He's totally the morally righteous guy, but he's in the wrong side of every issue because he believes his coworkers are moral, right? When his boss knows correctly that they're just immoral fucks and they should just forget about it. But he wants to do the right thing. He just has the bad information. They continue that storyline all the way through, and it's such delicious irony.
That's cool.
So
that was the part I did watch. I liked all that stuff. Like
than
all the supposedly good guy stuff.
I have criticisms of it, but overall I think it's good. And they kind of did a similar thing in season one with the protest at the end of season one, but the protest at the end of season one just seemed to be executed laughably to me. This is executed very well. Very well. Yeah.
Do they don't bring back his boss, do they? I love that guy.
They never do. That character is great. Yeah.
He was a great character.
There's three more 3 more episodes left, and they're saying, and this is interesting, but you said you hated Rogue One. You despise Rogue One with every fiber of your being.
I said I did not like it. I didn't say I hated it with every fiber of my being. I said it was dumb. Yeah.
You said it gave you testicular cancer.
I didn't say that. I said Rogue One beats children, okay, and burns down the crops of the countryside.
Right.
And poisons the water supply. That's what I said.
You said
Don't get it
Rogue
twisted.
One. You said Rogue One killed Luke Skywalker's aunt and uncle.
I said Rogue One planned October 7th. Okay.
Yes, there you go. Supposedly at the end of the season, and this is an interesting phenomenon. I'm not sure this has taken place in cinema anywhere, has it? Where they're saying at the end of the season for Rogue One, season 2 for Rogue One
Of Andor.
Of Andor. Yeah. No, sorry. At the end of the season 2 of Andor, you should be able to put in Rogue One and it be like a season 3 of Andor, right? Because it picks up exactly where.
Right.
Did I?
Yeah, you said it right.
Okay. So has that taken place anywhere in television? Is that a thing? A prequel that syncs up perfectly with a movie that you can watch the movie as a 3rd season of the television show?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's super unique.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
So everyone's talking about, a lot of people like Andor. I was worried when the first 3 episodes dropped because they were really kind of a snooze fest. And there are some scenes throughout this that are a little snoozy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff to like in there. There's some really interesting stuff. And the last 3 episodes, they even touched on the Force a bit, which people were noticing was absent in kind of a strange way, a way that I liked. So
I feel like it's almost probably diminishes Andor to hook it up so perfectly to Rogue One. Because the parts of Andor that I saw that I did like just seemed completely absent from Rogue One.
Well, I think, obviously, Disney re-released the prequel that George Lucas did. Which prequel did they?
The Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. Okay, and they made a bunch of money off of that. So
they're going to release Rogue One. Yeah,
I think they're going to re-release Rogue One. Rogue One, it was the movie that the Disney Star Wars that a lot of people liked. I know that you thought it gave you testicular cancer, but a lot of people, that movie was very liked by a lot of people, and it'll probably make $1 bazillion when they re-release it after. And it might even drive more traffic to the Andor television show, which I don't know the numbers on it, but a lot of people are talking about it. So the numbers might go up. I don't think Disney releases streaming numbers. So, but
yes.
Sitch says one day he's going to watch Andor season 1 and
listen,
and
if
2.
you want to make a video on it, you go right ahead. Make your Andor video.
My video? I don't
know when I'm going to get to it.
Maybe Andor, I will. So. Nobody wants a video praising something. And if it's something that people like and you point out the parts you didn't like that could be improved, they accuse you of nitpicking. So,
well, you can point out the things you like about it.
The Andor, I see a lot of Andor videos. I've watched some of these Andor videos, the ones without background music, of course. If you're putting background music in your Andor video, I fucking hate you, okay? I think you should be deplatformed from the internet. So that's my stance. I'm obviously kidding about the deplatforming, but some people don't understand humor. The Andor videos that I've seen of people praising Andor, they don't really, it's so weird because they know people like Andor, but they don't make any good arguments why Andor is good. It's all just, oh, this scene was so brilliant. It's just shrouded in vagaries. So amazing. The praise is off the charts, but they don't really put together, well, why did this scene work? Why was this good?
Right.
Anyway,
we'll
talk about it on the media channel 2 years from now. I mean, Look, I was late to the party on Game of Thrones. Obviously, I was like, I'm going to watch Game of Thrones. I think it was one of those times my shoulder was completely out from drawing so much. I was like, okay, I can't draw. I just have to do something else.
Thorin Parbst for $5 says we're all made in God's image, but some of us are more in God's image than others. Thank you. Glad you like that line. Cowpoke Ranch for $10 says these people are not Christian nationalists. They're white supremacists, theocratic fascists. Being a white nationalist while claiming to worship a non-white man might be the biggest oxymoron ever. Yeah, it is. It is interesting. I don't know exactly what the time frame was, where somewhere along the way, Fuentes figured out, hey, being a white nationalist is like a bad branding. So I'm going to rebrand as a Christian nationalist. That'll trick the people. So. And Cowpoke Ranch for another $10 says it's not the word itself, it's the racial terrorism that has transpired throughout American history with that word in their mouth. Insult an Italian racially and see what happens. We all know what would. Really? I don't know. I don't know if call an Italian like a wop or something. I don't think they're going to be that offended by it. But I could be wrong.
I don't know. I'm not Italian.
I don't think even, it's funny. I think if I tell most young people, like, go through like the like those slurs, they don't even know what I'm talking about. They're like, what? That's a slur? Blame the Escape Corner for 15 months. Thank you so much. Says the argument from their perspective is that both of those harm a child. Calling a child a name is bad, but it doesn't hurt them.
True.
Yes. True. Well, can, but I don't know if that in that situation, the kid didn't seem very hurt by it or distraught by it. Cowpoke Ranch for $5 says the right really means when they say, quote, free speech is they want permission to openly be hostile towards other groups without consequence. The problem. Well, first of all, you shouldn't frame it as the right because it's not the right. You should frame it as the far right or the ethno-nationalist. My problem with the ethno-nationalists and the white nationalists that, claim, do all these like crying and virtue signaling about free speech. None of those fucking people believe in free speech whatsoever. Not a single one of them. And you can ask them if they well, they probably won't tell you publicly, but they'll tell you, in their own little private centers. If you say, if they controlled society, okay, if they were the dominant force controlling society, they would not allow free speech to exist. They would try to have an iron grip on society to make sure to maintain their ethno-nationalist ideology. They do not believe in free speech for a fucking second. So when they cry about it, it's like, fuck you, you're all a bunch of hypocrites. Oh, you squeeze Louise for $2 says atheist for Jesus nationalists. There you go. Perfect.
That's what Adam is. Can I say
that's what Adam is? Yeah. Tommy Simonson for 50 Donkey Kong dollars says, do you really not know Pierce's past? You should do a video on his phone hacking scandal that forced him to move to the US. Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with his past. I know he was kind of the slimy Brit tabloid guy and all the phone hacking stuff. So. But I guess he's sort of, at least until recently, maybe he'd rehabilitated his view. So maybe not. Cowpoke Ranch for $2 says, what color was the man who loves you? Yes. Lethal Stranding for $5 says, so according to Piers, Joe Biden should have been ran into the recesses of life. Plenty of video of Joe saying it on the House floor. There you
go. The N-word. Yeah, exactly.
They used to call him N-word Joe. He just couldn't stop himself.
Yep.
Burger Dan for $5 says, you guys hear the new Pope is Chicagoan. Go Bears have no excuse to lose the Super Bowl next year. That's a good point. That is a good point.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. For $5.
He prays for it, right? The Pope prays for them to win. Oh my God.
There you go. It counts as extra.
That's great.
Do you think here's my question for my Catholics out there, or even the non-Catholic Christians. Do you think it makes sense that the Pope is just like voted on? Shouldn't there be like something more spiritual, something more holy? I know Sam to me today, she recommended that like all the Pope, candidates should have to go out on a cloudy day, and like whoever gets the first sunbeam to form on them is like chosen by God to be the Pope. Does that make more sense than voting?
They should tie a cinder block around his ankle and throw him in the river. And if he lives,
Oh,
Yeah, obviously.
the old witch test.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's
Does
a good
that
idea.
does that work with popes too?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I think that one. But
Throw 4 or 5 of them in there. Whichever one lives, you're like, that's the one God wants.
you have to put like all the old pope stuff in a box, and then you blindfold the other popes, and whichever one can like feel the pope energy from the box, gets it, like the Dalai Lama.
Oh yeah. I think voting is good enough. It's a political position anyway.
John Watt says, as a Catholic, no Sitch. There you go. He's in favor of voting. So I'm just saying, wouldn't it seem more holy? I'm just kidding. M8566 for $5 says, GiveSendGo for Sitch when maybe we can pray the TDS away. Listen, I support fully, as long as I get the money, you creating a GiveSendGo to pray for me. If you can get me up to, I'm not greedy. I won't be like Shiloh Hendricks. Won't even be for $1 million. If you can get me up to 100 grand, it's like the dress. If you can get me up to 100 grand, okay, you could probably change my opinion on a lot of political issues.
Would you go full support of Trump? Would you make arguments in favor of Trump even when he's doing terrible things?
I can be bought. All right.
I mean, $100,000 is,
somebody buy me out for 100 grand.
I mean, that's the money right there.
There you go. Lethal Strain for $5 says, kind of weird how Piers is making money from this video and he tried to get a woman to say it. Am I confused? No, you're correct. You are correct. Lethal Strain for $5 says, also Piers is saying, quote, protect the children, then the Anthony fundraiser would have to be taken down. Doesn't he realize that? Well, I think he is in favor of that. I believe he said he was in favor of that. So,
did you miss Cowpoke Ranch? It's almost like black and white tension in America is a lucrative business.
Yes,
Cowpoke Ranch for $5. There you go.
I did miss it. Yes.
Unfortunately, yes. I don't know how we stop that though, because of the whole free speech thing. Free speech just ties our hands everywhere. Probably for the best though.
The way you stop it is again, you can't have this. The same rules have to apply to everyone. That's the only way it stops. That is literally
procedural fairness. Yes,
there has to be procedural fairness.
Yeah,
everyone's got to follow the same fucking rules. Hypocrisy is the death of this.
And we're all perfect. We have perfect moral sensors for that kind of unfairness. Just gets us super pissed. That's where all the conflict begins, in the double standard.
Right. Mike Mills for $5 says, I agree that we shouldn't cancel someone over one heated interaction, but she is doubling down, to be fair. That is true. I don't think she should be canceled forever from it, but I mean, she's not, as I said, she's doubling. Technically she's tripling down on it, but who's keeping count?
Well, in this environment, though, you can't really, obviously, if she came out and had any sort of admission of guilt, the cancel mob would come at her even stronger. I don't think just strategically you can give in. I don't think you can give an inch to these people.
Yeah. So, but I guess the question is, are they tripling down because they know that's how they generate money from the Groyper incel community, or are they doing it because they actually feel that way?
Right.
And I mean, listen, maybe I'm being a little biased here, but that woman didn't strike me as like sophisticated, reading the, Ron Johnson's book about forgiveness and cancel culture. And she's like, I'm going to do the strategic ploy here.
It's John Ronson, but
there you go. See, yeah. I'm a dumbass too. I don't even know.
So you've been publicly shamed. That book is amazing. Very, very funny, very fascinating. Yes. But yeah, she's not reading up on this.
Right.
She doesn't know who Justine Sacco is.
No. D5280 for $5 says, media, academia, Hollywood manifested wokeness, not whites. The idea of wokeness would go away if whites just took all the abuse on the chin as a joke. I mean, obviously some of those people were white. A lot of people manifested wokeness, a lot of different skin colors and ethnicities and, fields of study, unfortunately. But yes, the idea that wokeness would go away if whites just took it all on the chin is absurd. It's going to just make it, so much worse.
I mean, that's the thesis in the media, academia, and Hollywood. That's the thesis. Just we're all gonna be magnanimous.
Well, it's mostly communists. A bunch of commies who are just trying to fucking blow up society.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to work, though. I really don't.
Lethal Strain for 5 months says, Sitch, check DM, Son of Sam Law. Yeah, I believe I don't remember. There's some stream where we talked about this. I don't remember what stream it was. It was about, because I know, yeah, there's some states that do have laws that say you can't profit off of
crimes. Yeah, that's it. Bring the Son of Sam laws in. That's a perfect example.
But then I think the Son of Sam law, which I believe was in New York, I believe it originally got overturned and then they tweaked it a little bit. It got overturned for free speech purposes. And then they tweaked it a little bit, and I don't think it's been challenged again because it kind of came up with the guy in what's his name? The Goodfellas guy with his book, about whether he can really make money off of his book and not.
Yeah. I know it is about making money off of your memoir, but now the money goes to the family. In this situation, it's just so fucking difficult because obviously he needs money for a legal defense.
Mm-hmm.
And a good legal defense can change everything, but I mean, it can also get a murderer off scot-free.
Of course.
So if he uses all this money and gets off scot-free, there's going to be fucking riots. Oh my God, it's going to be riots in the streets. It is.
I mean, I hope not. So let's see. I'm curious.
That's such a blatant injustice.
I am curious to see if there is more information that comes out during the trial.
Is this trial going to be televised? Are we going to be covering this trial like the Kyle Rittenhouse situation?
Where was this? Is it in a state that is?
I'm not sure. But I mean, it is. I mean, this story could be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be a big cultural moment.
I think it would definitely, it's in Texas. Does Texas televise trials? It says, under the open court provision, in general, court proceedings are presumptively open to the public in Texas state courts. So unless they do something special, it looks like yes, it will.
Yeah, but will they let cameras in? That's the difference. Obviously, having a live feed of Kyle Rittenhouse was huge.
Well, to me, I mean, I guess personally, it's not so much, will it be televised? It's just will the information, all the information, because I feel like with Kyle Rittenhouse, like basically every piece of information was made publicly available. So it became very easy for people, I think, to people that were not biased to draw the correct conclusion of the events, right?
Yeah.
I would hope that the same thing happens with the Carmelo Anthony case. So people can draw the correct conclusion. Whatever that may be.
This could be like the reverse George Floyd.
It could be. I hope not. I really hope not. Corn Pop for $10 says, did you guys see Anna say Daryl Cooper is, quote, very nuanced? Maybe want to show her the tweets. And will you guys cover Professor Dave's trans video? Apparently it's getting a lot of reaction. I didn't see Anna say that, no.
I didn't see it either. So maybe you sent me a DM about it. I haven't had time to reach out to Anna, but I did notice. So Sitch, I think, was contemplating making a video about that situation.
I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So obviously Anna would see the video since she watches the channel, and she probably missed our live stream on it. If she said that after our live stream.
Right.
But yeah, we'll get her the word. The Professor Dave's trans video is oh my God, it's a fucking horror show.
Where is it? I don't see it on his channel. What's it called?
I think
it's Professor Dave Explains channel, right?
I think he's made 4 trans videos. If you go to my Twitter feed, I tweeted out a video that was a response video from some other guy on his on his trans video that I thought was very good. I don't watch Professor Dave, so I never saw his original video.
Oh, it was King Critical. Yeah, I've seen a lot of King Critical's content.
Oh, really? I think that's the first time I ever saw him. But he does great content.
Mm-hmm.
Very smart. Seems unbiased.
Yes.
Calls himself a leftist Marxist, but did you know that?
I didn't know that. I've seen him do because he has a bunch of like responses to trans videos. So
yeah,
those are the ones I've seen. I haven't seen him talk about Marxism.
Yeah, it's weird, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched a few of his videos, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm coming at this from a left-wing perspective."
It's interesting.
Yeah, he said glowing things about Marx. Now you're like, discount everything. I mean, he's with us on the trans issue.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Listen, that's fine. That's good.
Got to take the wins where you can get them, right? Sitch is virulent.
Oh, I'm looking at Professor Dave. I was trying to find his video because he's got like a video criticizing Terrence Howard and Bill Maher. Unless maybe that's the one.
Those were fine. The Terrence Howard one was fine because Terrence Howard was crazy. But then this is the thing: if you come out and say, "Oh, Terrence Howard is bonkers," but I think sex is a spectrum, it's like, wait, you're bonkers.
Yeah, I've never really liked Professor Dave. He's always come off. I mean, obviously Terrence Howard is like retarded, crazy. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Even his videos against him, they were just so. He was just so obnoxious. It just rubbed me the wrong way.
Oh, he is completely obnoxious. I don't like it either. But the internet people love that. Remember what I said about how all left-wing people want to see is people dunking on right-wingers? Like that's their content. That's their pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Dave does that. So they're just, oh my God, this guy's the king.
Right.
He's making fun of right-wingers with a bunch of bad, terrible arguments that completely undermine his scientific credibility. But whatever, he goes after Jerry Coyne.
Metalworks 411.90 for $5 says no one brought up the fact the dog walking woman was completely innocent and the bird watcher was a grifter baiting people walking their dogs. Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like the sort of mischaracterization of that scenario because she didn't call him a racial epithet or anything whatsoever, and she was 100% innocent, and that guy was a total piece of shit. So,
yeah,
that's a crazy fucking story.
Never forget.
Yep.
That story was partly responsible for Anna Kasparian's transformation, she said, because she reported on that story in the completely biased format, getting it straight from the New York Times and other biased sources, and then came to find out it was all fucking lies.
I know, which is wild.
Sad, yeah. Look, if you can't even repeat what you hear in the New York Times to your friends, what is the world coming to?
What are we having? Oh, thank you, Strain. I think sent me the video. Okay.
Oh, good.
I'll check it out.
I'm not going to send you that video. I'd have to look it up.
Hiki Lee for 3 months says GSG GiveSendGo do offer prayer. I got one 3 months ago after starting mine. Didn't raise much, but they're very kind. Gary Harris Memorial Fund if interested. Oh wow, well there you go.
Well, I mean, I hope you're okay.
Yes. Sade Ray for 5 SGDs says Mark's point is that they are donating to the guy because they think he's innocent. That's different in donating for the N-word usage. Yeah, I think that this is the problem is that it's like it's complicated. It's kind of muddy because I'm sure there are some people who, whether rightly or wrongly, believe that the person is innocent. They believe that they're being railroaded because they believe like that everyone's racist and blah blah blah, and so they're donating for that purpose. But there's also people who seem to be, based on the comments of a lot of these things and based on the attitude, who are donating because they don't give a shit whether he's innocent or not. They think it's just justifiable from a whataboutism perspective, because they say, oh, well, black people have been discriminated against, so it's totally fine, for a black person to kill a white person. And that's obviously completely despicable. So
that is the problem with the issue, because you can't separate those two factions. Right.
So you can, like, if Mark Lamont Hill was honest, I think he would address both of those factions.
Right.
And then, and then you could even say, well, with the I mean, I'm sure there is. I think it's probably the minority, but I'm sure there's some faction that is donating to Shiloh because it's like we're anti-cancel culture. You know, I think the majority of it is just like curly birds and shit. But
you can easily morally condemn one faction and say the other faction is acceptable. The problem is both the factions are indistinguishable from one another. I mean,
right.
Unless you can read people's minds, you can't really tell. And the faction that's doing it for despicable reasons will just hide themselves in the faction that's doing it for noble reasons. Right?
Right. Alex Wright for $5 says, today, instead of announcing the Indian deal, Trump presented the framework for a UK deal on day 32, maintaining the US 10% blanket rate on the UK. Yeah, I don't think it seems like I don't know. I don't think we're going to really get any of these deals off the ground. It seems like everyone's just kind of pulling each other's dicks around. This shit takes forever. You know, I forget who it was.
The market is holding strong, but whatever. Go ahead.
There's some economist that was like, the idea that you're going to like hammer out these, he's like saying like these complicated trade deals take like years to make. The idea that they're going to just like, you know, hammer out some deal in like a month is ridiculous. So especially let alone like 80 deals or 100 deals or however many fucking deals we're supposed to make with these people. So
was it Alex that I had the gentleman's bet about the rate cuts? No, I don't think so. Who was it? Anyway,
was it Alex Wright or wasn't there Alex Nice or something?
The rate cuts are continually being pushed up. So
there you go. You're gonna lose your bet.
Maybe.
Cowpoke Ranch for $5 says, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into a living energy source. Morpheus.
Right.
The future. That's the great filter. Lethal Strain for $5 says, MSNBC upcoming headline. Trump post pic of him being Pope. Then U.S. Pope announced, was this to avoid tariffs? It's funny.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, no tariffs. We could do it on Vatican City, right? What do they produce? Nothing. Maybe a couple Bibles or something.
Right. The Wooster for $5 says, Sitch, when are you going to watch Andor? When? Last episode next week. It's so good. Sad it's ending.
Oh, you do? So Wooster likes it.
He likes it, yeah. Listen, I'll watch it when I can. You don't understand. Okay, I have to feed Sammy her drug every night. Okay, she's really got to get through Blueprints. All right.
Oh, is that what's going on? You're watching something completely inconsequential. So
we're playing something. We're playing this game that is.
Oh, you're playing a game.
She's obsessed with it. She's upset. It's like it's her drug. It's her cocaine. All right.
Here's the thing.
Can't pry her away from it.
Here's the thing that I'm really curious about.
What?
I want to see George Lucas watching Andor because I can't help but feel that this is what George Lucas was going for in the prequels and failed miserably. Because they really have nailed the kind of political intrigue that I think George Lucas was going for, but just couldn't pull it off. Yeah. So it is interesting.
That would be a very interesting way to frame a video on it.
Yeah, look, maybe I'll make a video.
You should do the video on like Andor succeeds when the prequels fail. Oh my God, the trigger.
Everyone will just fucking hate. I'm not going to do a video that's. It's stupid to make videos that turn you into fucking enemy number one.
Okay, that's fair.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. I guess in a video, I guess it's more dangerous to talk about it on a live stream because everybody loses their mind and mischaracterizes your position. In a video, you can kind of get around that. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I will.
Mm-hmm.
I went and saw Thunderbolts. I went and saw Sinners. I mean, I've contemplated making videos on both those. I'm just kind of getting my bearings. There's so much stuff that I haven't seen because I've spent the last 3 years working on the fucking comic. So I'm just trying to get up to speed on a lot of the stuff that I've missed in Star Wars, in Marvel, in just movies in general.
Right. Metalworks 411.90 for $5 says, an alien life form could have figured out how to extend their lifespan through genetic modification to the point where slow space travel doesn't matter. I mean, they could do it. The question is, would you want to do it? Right. It's a different question entirely. So I'm not opposed to the idea that aliens could figure out some way to like bend space away from the light speed restrictions anyway. So I'm not sure that's really a limitation, for some hyper advanced society anyway. So,
well, if you can, that's the thing. When you if you can separate consciousness and the body, you can send bodies out and beam consciousness to them. And that solves the issue as well. Because the consciousness isn't activated until it gets in the body. So
sure, but it would
could
still
be
have
10,000 years.
It was stuff to get there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of ways around it. That's why whenever I see alien movies that the aliens are biological, I always think, it's so silly. They should all be robots. That should be the standard.
I think it's more interesting. Like there's more.
It's more
it feels
relatable.
More interesting if there's like actually an alien there, not like, no, these are all just like empty drones,
Right.
So
it's got to be relatable.
Right.
It's the problem.
Though in the Edge of Tomorrow, like they're just biological weapons that are just sent out. So I guess that's kind of. Mitch for $2 Aussie bucks says thoughts on Psychopaths and the new Devil May Cry. Still haven't watched it yet, Mitch. Still haven't watched it yet, but thank you. Squeeze Louise for $2 says atheist. Oh, I read that one. Atheist for Jesus Nationalist. Memes Brand for 2 months says probably a hot take. I never cared much for the OG Star Wars trilogy. Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie by far, even though it has problems. Wow, that's very interesting. Very interesting.
I rewatched Rogue One before, and because I knew Andor season 2 was coming out. I finished Andor season 1 when I was shipping comics out because I was stuck shipping comics for hours and hours on end. I watched a bunch of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Rogue One is not that bad. I don't understand the virulent hatred for it. It's just, it's not a terrible movie. I mean, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite movies of all time or anything. But
Simp.
Yeah. But I mean, it's okay. It's adequate.
Oh, okay. I'll go this guy. Metal Rules 81 for $5 says y'all should cover the Dean Withers microaggression fiasco on their so-called Unfuck America tour. It's hilarious how the left eats their own. I'll check it out. I don't know anything about that whatsoever.
What is that? Dean Winters?
Dean Withers. Yes.
Y'all should. Well, we can do that. I mean, we'll take a look at it. We usually just cover what's hot. What's hot?
Yes.
What's going on? Is that hot right now? We'll cover it. Throw it in. Let's do it. We're only an hour over time, but whatever. Let's get moving. Sitch.
Sell it for $2 says, I know you guys aren't Catholic, but how about the first American Pope? Woo! USA. USA.
I mean, do love it. Yeah.
It's still based. Yeah.
That's awesome. They should all be American. I'm surprised they weren't all American.
S for $6 or no, five for $6. That's confusing. Thank you. Says can't watch live now, so just in case, quote, Adam, why didn't you show my comic? And if you did, thanks.
Who's that?
5.
I didn't get a comic, but I mean, we can show it.
What does that mean?
Send it on.
Unless they're talking about somebody tweeted today that they received our comic. Unless that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's Asif Artsy. I don't know why his name was. I'm guessing because we did show his comic. Yes, thank you, Asif Artsy. Yes, thank you. I don't know. Your name came up as a 5. I don't know why. Fondue for $10 says, by the way, there's a new Gundam show that is directed by the same guy who did Fooly Cooley. I don't know if it's good though. It's called G-Quacks. Friend groups calling it G-Quacks. That's interesting.
Well,
Gundam by the Fooly Cooley. Okay. That's interesting. I've never ever liked.
Great.
I've never liked Gundam, but if they have a Gundam with Fooly Cooley energy, that'd be interesting. Arithmus for $2. Thank you. Says there's almost universal institutional support for the woke leftist causes. The white nationalists have no institutional support, so they can't be a threat in the way the far left is. This could change, but seems unlikely. Yeah, I do agree with that. I do. I think it's more the backlash. I mean, first of all, I just don't want people to be super fucking racist. It's bad too, but I do think it's going to cause a backlash. So, Alex Wright for $2 says Feds looking for certainty, so no cut for 4 years.
It's not going to be 4 years. Give me a break. 4 years?
4 years.
That's insane.
4 years.
You're going to take young people can take a mortgage at 7%? That's outrageous.
I mean,
That's
my parents took a
criminal.
mortgage at like 20% or something, I think.
Oh, yeah, back in the day?
Everyone
Yeah.
talks about the boomers having it easy. They had some crazy mortgage rates.
Yeah, their first house was probably $20,000 though.
That is true. But
What's 7% of $20,000?
mhm,
And what's 7% of $400,000?
right.
It's like a huge difference, right? That's just 7% though. Anyway. BJP equals based. For
For
$2.
You can read it.
Would you have Brittany Simon as a guest? Of course, she hates Destiny. I'd love to have her on. Invite her on. Fuck yeah. We'll all talk shit about Destiny together. It'll be great. Yeah, fuck
Wow,
yeah.
look at that.
Destiny haters, welcome. We'll
Mhm.
roll out the red carpet for you. If any of you hate Destiny, come on and tell us about it.
Is it weird that like so many people, it seems like so many people have crawled back to Destiny because it's like, whatever, his views didn't really suffer much from, being
Well, he makes good
sex
content.
pest,
People,
so
yeah. People
they
don't
don't
give a
care.
fuck if you make
Yeah.
good content.
There you go.
They're like, oh
Sad.
yeah, he's a revenge porn person, but whatever.
Whatever. It's fine. Yeah. Anyways,
It'll all work out.
it all works out, right?
I saw a chat come up on the side there. Was that old? For StreamYards? Just popped
Oh,
up.
let me
One
see.
more. I don't know. It looked like it might be. That might just be a $2 one. I
Fondue,
don't know.
thanks so much, Fondue, for $6. Says the Fermi paradox might also just be cosmic radiation. Without a star's electromagnetic field, we would be bathed in an unending wave of fire. That is also true.
Ooh, I know.
There's another interesting idea because which is that part of the solution of the Fermi paradox could be that we're just maybe one of the oldest forms of intelligent life so far, even though the universe is very old. That doesn't mean that the range at which intelligent life could develop is old as well. There's some idea, some argument, I don't understand the science behind it, where they're actually saying, well, actually, if you consider the temperature of the universe and all these other things, you could actually only recently in the grander timescale things, have intelligent life or large scale, large form life even evolve in the first place. So how interesting would that be if we develop space travel, we start exploring, it turns out we're the ancient ones. We're the elder aliens, not anyone else. We're the first.
As long as we shit on all the young'uns and completely do all the horrible things in all of these space movies, that'd be great. Yeah.
We have to listen. We have to be good. All right.
In Independence Day, we are the aliens.
No. We're going to be good. We're going to cultivate intelligent. We're going to be like the good, magnanimous, awesome species that cultivates intelligent life around the universe.
I mean, I see how the clout hierarchy works. I think it's more likely that we're going to be the bad aliens
No. You have to
Independence
be
Day.
optimistic. Okay. We're
All right,
the
I hope
based
so.
the based humans. We're
I
the
hope
original
so.
the original life form.
We're the Empire.
It's funny because if that turns out to be true, Christians will be like, "We fucking told you so. We were
Right.
God's chosen. Fuck you, Darwinist.
Oh wow, yeah.
Eat shit. We were the first." That'd be pretty funny.
If we're God's chosen, then we can do all the nasty stuff and get away
There
with
you
it,
go.
right?
There you go.
I've seen the history books.
Right.
Matt
Dillamonkey. Oh, that's a great name. Matt Dillamonkey for $2 says Matt Dillahunty keeps going off the deep end more. Yeah, there was this. I don't know. I wanted to cover it, but it was a while ago. I remember I listened to this conversation. Like Dillahunty had this call-in
On
stream.
the trans stuff. Yeah, I had
People
listened
were
to that
calling in
too.
to argue with him about trans stuff, and he was just like unfucking hinged on the trans shit. And I was like, "What is going on here?" And then I found out because I kept listening. He's dating a trans woman.
Yeah,
so that's why he's like so unhinged on the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating, isn't
No,
it? All right.
is.
This was a great stream. I had a blast. I guess we're going to see you guys on Sunday.
Yes. Anyways, thank you all for coming. Thank you for incredibly generous donations. We'll see you all Sunday. Take care, everybody.
Can't wait.
Bye-bye.
You bitch.
Stole it. Dunny just snuck